Welcome, dear listener, to this quiet place where history comes to rest with you, where stories once buried in silence rise again like echoes through marble halls, gently carried on the soft breeze of sleep. And tonight, I invite you to open your mind to the ancient world of Rome, to see through the eyes of women whose voices were taken from them, whose dreams were stolen by iron chains and cruel hands, yet whose courage and silent pain deserve to be remembered. So please, before we begin, make sure you subscribe to this channel and click the bell icon so you never miss these calm, deeply human stories that help you drift into rest. Because each night we uncover new truths, we lay down the burdens of the past, and in that stillness, perhaps we can find our own peace. So let us begin together with a slow breath in and a gentle breath out. Let your body relax. Feel the weight of your day soften, and travel back with me across centuries to the edge of the Roman Empire, where a quiet village lies nestled among green hills. Small wooden houses where mothers cook and fathers teach their sons to fish, where girls carry water from a stream and share songs as old as time. And in that moment, the world feels safe, warm, full of hope. But far beyond those hills, the Roman army is moving, unstoppable, armored, efficient, seeking conquest, wealth, and slaves to feed its unquenchable hunger. And one day, these soldiers arrive at the village gates, carrying iron swords and harsh commands, burning fields, tearing down fences, dragging people out of their homes in a storm of screams and flame. And there among them is a young woman, perhaps only 16, trembling as rough hands grab her wrists and lock them in iron shackles, tearing her from her mother's arms, from her father's broken voice, and forcing her to march with dozens of others toward a future that she cannot see, cannot imagine, and cannot change. And for days they walk in dust and tears, chained together, children sobbing, old people falling behind, and all along the Roman soldiers push them forward without pity, until finally they reach a great walled city, magnificent and terrifying, where a slave market waits, filled with rich men who treat flesh like gold, who measure bodies as if they were animals, testing teeth and skin and eyes, choosing who might fetch the best price. And this girl stands numb, her thoughts turned to stone, while merchants call out numbers and her name is lost, replaced with a tag on her neck, a label marking her as property, nothing more. And then a hand raises, money exchanges, and she is bought, purchased like a loaf of bread, led away from the market into a new prison she cannot escape, the grand villa of a Roman master whose family will now own her, mind and body, dawn to dusk, year after year without end. And the girl's first night is full of terror, for she does not know what awaits, whether she will be forced into a kitchen or a laundry or a bed she does not choose. And in that darkness, she prays to forgotten gods, to protect her, to save her, to give her at least the strength to survive. And when morning comes, the house is already awake, slaves moving with practiced fear, carrying water, stirring pots, sweeping floors, serving children who laugh without understanding the silent pain around them. And she is shown her place, a small corner on the floor where she will sleep, if she is lucky, a thin blanket if the master is generous, and no privacy, no voice, no protection, only endless labor that begins before sunrise and ends long after the lamps are blown out. Her back aching, her feet raw, her spirit slowly fading. And worse still is the moment she realizes her master has noticed her, his eyes sharp with a desire she cannot refuse. No Roman law will protect her. No one will believe her if she cries. For a female slave is a tool, a body, a womb, and nothing more. And when the master takes what he wants, there is no trial, no question, only acceptance and the cruel ache of knowing her child, if conceived, will belong to him as property too, and could be taken away, sold, given as a gift, before it ever learns to walk. And so she learns to build a wall inside herself, to keep her tears buried deep, to harden her heart, because softness will break it, and to work without complaint, to smile when commanded, to hide every bruise and every insult, because resistance means death or worse, and in this life, death might almost be a kindness. And so night after night, she closes her eyes on a cold stone floor, letting her mind float away, remembering the smell of her mother's bread, the sound of water running through the fields of her village, anything to ease the darkness in her chest. And in this moment, dear listener, I invite you to breathe slowly, to feel the safety of your own bed, to know that you are free, while this girl was not. And if you stay with me, I will guide you through the next steps of her journey, deeper into the hidden corners of her world, and you will learn how she survived, how she found tiny sparks of hope among ashes. So please, stay with me. Let the calm rhythm of this history lull you into a restful mind as we continue her story. The story of a girl who could have been anyone, could have been your sister, could have been your daughter, and whose name the world forgot, but whose courage we will remember tonight. And so the girl's days unfold, blending one into the next like a sad and endless river, each moment carefully measured, each breath borrowed from a master who sees her as no more than a moving tool. And her duties stretch from scrubbing stone floors until her knees bleed, to tending a kitchen furnace that never truly goes cold, to carrying water in heavy clay jars that cut into her shoulders until her skin is raw. And all the while she must keep watch over the children of the house, Roman children with bright eyes, who have no idea she once had dreams of her own, who pull at her clothes, who laugh while she works, who demand stories she must tell with a gentle voice even as her soul cries in secret. And if she dares look tired or sad, she may be whipped, because a slave woman must not show exhaustion. And so she masters the art of hiding pain, of forcing her lips to smile when her heart is breaking. And in the night, after all candles are dark, she may be summoned to the master's bedchamber, where she has no right to say no, and no right to choose what happens next, and no right to protect the child who might come from this violation. And so the cycle goes on, as countless women before her turned into a body for labor, a body for pleasure, a body for carrying new slaves into the world, and never allowed to be simply herself, never allowed to rest, never allowed to hope. But somewhere inside, she still keeps a tiny flicker of memory of her mother's lullabies, of her father's calloused hands, of warm bread and spring flowers and rain singing on clay rooftops. And sometimes those memories are the only thing that hold her together, like threads tying her broken heart so it does not fully shatter. And in rare moments of silence, when the house is still, she lets those memories rise like a quiet tide, washing over her with bittersweet comfort, and she wonders, just for a second, whether someone in her old village might be praying for her, whether a mother somewhere still grieves, or a friend still searches. And though she will likely never see them again, that fragile hope is enough to steady her steps through another day of harsh orders and the biting sting of a master's impatience. And outside the villa, the Roman Empire continues its conquests, pulling in new slaves from every corner of its vast and bloody dominion, flooding the cities with more women just like her, some carrying infants at their breasts, some too young to understand what has been taken from them, but all chained to the same system of cruelty. And the marketplace echoes with the sound of auctions, hammers striking wood, prices shouted over the weeping of families torn apart. And no one stops to ask who these women were before, what stories they told, what songs they sang to their children. No one cares, except perhaps you, dear listener, who now hold their memories close in the gentle space between waking and sleep, who can remember them tonight when the world grows quiet, and give them a tiny place of honor in your dreams, for they deserve to be known, even if history tried to silence them. And so I ask you again, please subscribe to this channel if you have not yet done so, because together we can keep telling these truths, letting calm words and soft storytelling bring the past back to life, one forgotten soul at a time, helping you rest, helping you find peace, while honoring the courage of those who had no voice. So stay with me as we carry forward, breathing, slowly letting your shoulders grow heavy. And picture now a sunrise in the Roman countryside. The villas gleaming white in the first light. Slaves already awake before dawn, moving like shadows through the courtyards, stoking fires, sweeping ash from the marble halls. And in one corner of this grand household, our girl kneels by a wash basin, scrubbing a child's tunic stained with yesterday's food. And she does not complain, because complaining brings the whip, and the whip brings scars, and scars can make a slave less valuable, and a less valuable slave might be sold away or sent to die in the mines. And the mines are worse than death, she has heard, because in the mines there is no day or night, only pain until your body collapses. And so she works, quiet and obedient, guarding what little strength she has. And if she dares to dream, it is a freedom, of a tiny patch of earth where she could grow herbs and flowers, where she could sing to herself without fear, where no one would tell her when to sleep, when to wake, when to breathe. And even though that dream is impossible, it keeps her soul alive, like a secret candle in a world of endless night. And when you think of her, I invite you to hold that candle with her, to let its fragile glow warm your mind as you relax, because stories like this are not meant to leave you afraid, but to help you see how strong the human heart can be, how it can endure even the worst darkness and still carry a seed of hope. So take another deep breath, let your hands rest, feel the blanket over your skin, and remind yourself you are safe while she was not. And keep listening as we follow her through the winding halls of this villa, past columns carved with marble gods, past gardens planted for Roman pride, past statues of emperors who built an empire on the backs of the enslaved. And there, beneath all that splendor, a young woman tries to keep her humanity alive, step by step, heartbeat by heartbeat, reminding herself that she is more than a number, more than a price, more than a tool. She is still someone somewhere inside, and that spark is what history cannot fully erase. And today, we walk through Roman ruins, marble pillars, silent mosaics. We see no trace of those women's pain. Their voices have faded, but tonight we honor them by remembering their stories, their quiet courage, their will to survive. Let that knowledge soothe you to sleep. You are safe, you are warm, and you can rest with respect for their memory. Good night. Welcome back, dear friend, to the next part of this gentle journey through the shadows of the Roman Empire, where tonight we continue following the silent path of a young woman whose name has been lost to time, but whose courage will travel with you through the night, helping you relax, slow your thoughts, and remember that even the smallest voices matter. And if you have not already, please subscribe to this channel and click the bell icon so you never miss these calm historical stories meant to cradle your mind into sleep. Because each night, with each quiet breath, we explore the untold and the unseen, shining a soft light on corners of the past that deserve respect. So take a long, slow inhale, let your shoulders drop, and prepare to return to the stone walls and silent fears of the Roman household, where our young slave girl now rises before the dawn, waking to the muffled sounds of other servants stirring in the darkness, stepping softly so as not to anger the overseer, and washing her face in cold water to chase away what little sleep she had managed to find on the hard floor, because there is no room for weakness here, no room for slowness, no room for dreams, only duty. And already she hears the footsteps of the steward, checking the tasks of the day, listing out chores that seem endless, polishing bronze plates, sweeping ash from the hearth, fetching water from a distant well, feeding goats, lighting oil lamps for the master's wife, who prefers to wake in a bright room, and the girl obeys. Without a word, her eyes low, her hands quick, because to hesitate is to be punished, and to speak without permission is to invite the whip. And as the household comes alive with movement, the girl becomes nearly invisible, a moving shadow, expected to know what to do before being told, to anticipate every whim, to sense the mood of the master's children, to watch for signs of anger or boredom, and to correct mistakes before they are noticed, because that is how a slave survives, by becoming almost a ghost in her own life, by learning to be useful without being seen. And today is no different, except that a guest is coming, an important Roman noble whose household is even larger than this one, and the entire villa must glean for his visit, and the girl is ordered to polish the courtyard tiles, scrubbing the stone until her knuckles are raw, while balancing jugs of water on her shoulder to rinse away the soap, working under a rising sun that bakes the marble until her skin feels scorched. But she does not slow, because eyes are watching, judging, waiting to catch the smallest slip, and so she moves like a machine, wiping sweat from her brow only when she is certain no one is looking, and thinking, always thinking, of the fields back home, of the small river where she once swam, of her sister's laughter, of a world that now feels like a dream from another lifetime. And though the pain in her hands burns, she tells herself to keep moving, to endure, because that is all she has left, the ability to keep breathing, to keep standing, to keep surviving. And perhaps that, in itself, is a kind of victory. And as the noble guest arrives, escorted by his own guards and servants, she lowers her eyes and blends into the background, barely daring to look, because slaves should not meet the gaze of the free, and she listens as he boasts about his lands, about his conquests, about the new shipments of slaves he will purchase soon, as if they were jars of olive oil, and our girl feels a chill in her chest, knowing she is part of that same trade, a commodity to be praised or discarded, a tool of labor. And when he laughs, she feels something deep inside turn to stone, because he laughs so easily, while she cannot even remember what laughing feels like. And later that evening, when the guest is gone, the villa is left in chaos. Dishes everywhere, spilled wine, a broken amphora of oil that must be cleaned before dawn. And the girl, already exhausted, is ordered to help, scrubbing the floor with handfuls of straw, washing greasy pottery, her wrists aching so badly she thinks they might snap, but she forces herself to keep going. Because she must, because there is no other choice. And in these moments, dear listener, I invite you to feel the softness of your own bed, the warmth of your blanket, the gift of freedom, so easily taken for granted, and to honor those who never had that gift, who suffered so others could live in comfort, and know that remembering them with gentleness and respect is a way of giving back a small piece of their humanity. So stay with me, keep listening, breathe slowly, because next we'll see how, even in such a dark and merciless place, tiny bonds of friendship could bloom between women who had nothing left. Women who found ways to soothe each other's pain with a shared smile or a whispered blessing, and how those stolen moments of kindness were stronger than any chain and stronger than any master. So stay with me as we continue this quiet remembrance together. And as the night wears on and the lamps gutter low, you might picture our young woman slipping outside to the slave quarters behind the villa, a simple set of rough stone rooms with straw mats and cracked clay jars, a place where no Romang ever bothers to look, a place forgotten by the masters, yet somehow alive with a fragile sense of community, where the other enslaved women gather for a brief moment of stolen breath, sharing scraps of bread and words spoken in low, careful voices, for they know the aim. Walls have ears, and in this small circle they offer one another tiny gifts of humanity, braiding each other's hair, patching torn tunics, sharing herbs for coughs, whispering blessings in languages the masters do not understand. And in those brief precious moments, they remember that they are more than property. They are sisters, daughters, mothers, even if the world refuses to see them that way. And sometimes they tell each other stories of their homelands, stories of the green valleys and bright festivals, stories of music and dancing, stories of love. And for a few minutes, they allow themselves to believe they are back there, safe and free. And that belief is a kind of magic, a shield against the constant cruelty of Rome. And our young woman listens, heart beating softly, as an older slave woman tells of a river where she once bathed, and the sound of frogs singing under the moon. And for a heartbeat, the harsh stone floor feels warmer, the air softer, and the girl can close her eyes and imagine running barefoot through cool grass, the wind carrying the river's song, no chains on her ankles, no fear of being called to serve a master's appetite. And that dream, dear listener, is what gives them strength to rise again tomorrow, to face another dawn, another day of labor, another night of unwanted hands, because they know they are not alone, and the smallest kindness can be a fortress in a world built to destroy them. So take a slow breath now and feel how these women held each other up, even when hope was dangerous. And you may wonder how they found the courage, but courage often grows in darkness, like a seed that pushes through the cracks of the hardest stone. And there in that hidden room, they share news about who might be sold away next, who is ill, who is with child, who needs help. And they vow to protect one another in any way they can. And the girl begins to learn these secrets, these codes of survival, watching for the signs of sympathy among the overseers, learning which free women in the household might be willing to pass on an extra crust of bread, or a scrap of linen, or a quiet warning before punishment comes. Because within the rules of slavery, there are still tiny rebellions, still tiny mercies, and these women cling to them as if they were pearls, hidden away from greedy eyes. And in the morning, our girl will rise again, carrying these memories in her heart, these soft sisterhoods, these moments of shared humanity, and she will move through the villa with her head low and her steps measured. But inside she will feel less alone, and that is what keeps her soul alive. And I want you to hold on to that truth as you rest, dear friend, to remember that even in the deepest depression, people can find ways to love and protect each other. And it is a powerful thing to remember, because it means that no matter how strong cruelty seems, it can never fully erase kindness. And that thought can help you let go of any fear or worry in your own heart tonight. Breathing deeply, sinking into your pillow, letting your eyes grow heavy, and stay with me still, because there is more to see, more to feel, more stories waiting to be told as we explore how these women found small pieces of education, teaching each other to read letters, to count, to pray, passing knowledge in secret, because a literate slave was dangerous to Rome. And yet knowledge is freedom in the mind, and freedom in the mind can never be fully chained. And so around the fire at night, one woman might draw letters in the dust, showing another how to sign a name, how to count the seasons, how to keep track of days and festivals and secret hopes. And this quiet education was an act of rebellion as bright as any sword, even if it was only whispered under a thatched roof. And though their masters might never suspect, these women were building a hidden legacy, seeds that would one day grow into something Rome could not kill. And as you think of them now, let their bravery soothe you. Let it settle your mind, because you too carry knowledge, you too carry freedom, and that gift is yours every day, every night, and is something to treasure. So as you rest, feel your breath deepen, your muscles soften, your spirit grow calm, knowing you are safe, and ready to hear even more of this hidden story, because in the next part of our journey, you will see what happens when the master begins to notice these secret bonds, and how danger can rise from even a single rumor, and how the girl will have to make impossible choices to protect her sisters. So please stay with me. Subscribe if you have not already, and let us move forward together. deeper into the heart of this ancient and sorrowful world. As we follow her through the coming storm, and as the moon sails high above the rooftops of the Roman villa, silver light tracing the marble statues and the quiet gardens, our young woman feels a chill of dread tightening around her heart. For word has reached the master that the slave women may be sharing forbidden knowledge, that they whisper together in languages he does not understand, that perhaps they are plotting escape or rebellion. And in Rome, such rumors are enough to bring down terrible punishment, enough to destroy even the smallest hope. And so one night, after the chores have been finished and the children put to bed, the master orders the women gathered in the courtyard, lined up like cattle, their faces pale in the torchlight, their hands shaking, and he demands to know who has been teaching. Letters, who has been speaking of freedom, and there is silence. A silence so deep, it seems to swallow every breath. Because to confess is death, and to accuse another is betrayal. And in that awful stillness, the girl's heart pounds so hard, she feels it in her throat, because she knows if the master learns the truth, they will all suffer. The women who helped her learn, the women who protected her, the women who became her family, and she cannot allow that, so she takes a step forward, head bowed, voice steady even though her legs want to collapse, and she says she was the one, she was the only one. And the master's eyes narrow, and for a moment she fears she will faint from the terror, but she forces herself to stay upright, to breathe, to hold her gaze low. And he orders her beaten 20 lashes, enough to scar her back forever, and she accepts it, not because she is without fear, but because she will not see the others harmed. And as the lash bites into her skin, over and over, tearing through cloth and flesh, she thinks of her sister, she thinks of her mother, she thinks of her name, repeating it in her mind so it will not be taken from her. And she counts each stroke as if it were a step towards something stronger, something brighter. And when it is finally done, she is thrown onto the stones, half-conscious, blood soaking her tunic. And the other women dare not help her until the guards turn away. But later, under the thin, pale glow of an oil lamp, they come to her, washing her wounds with water and herbs, whispering prayers over her, pressing cool cloth to her fevered brow. And in that moment, she understands something powerful, something that lifts her soul despite the agony, that they are still her sisters, still her protectors, and that this bond is stronger than any chain. And as she drifts into a ragged sleep, her dreams are tangled with the taste of freedom, the idea that one day this cruelty might end, that somewhere in the world there is a place where no one owns another, where no one is forced to bear children only to have them stolen, where no one must fear a master's anger. And the dream becomes a beacon, flickering but persistent, a tiny candle of hope that will guide her through the darkest hours. And as you listen to this, dear friend, I invite you to hold that candle with her, to keep its light burning in your heart, reminding you that even when the world feels cruel, there are people who will stand up for one another, who will suffer, rather than betray, who will risk everything to protect those they love. And that thought, that faith in human courage, can help you rest tonight, knowing that kindness and solidarity can survive even in the harshest places. So take a deep breath. Now let your shoulders soften, let your eyelids grow heavy, and let my voice carry you onward. Because in our next chapter, we will see how the girl recovers from her punishment, how the scars on her back become a symbol of silent rebellion, and how even the master cannot truly break her spirit. And together we will walk through the seasons of her life, learning what it meant to live, year after year, under Roman rule, and how a heart might find resilience in the smallest, simplest things. So please subscribe if you have not yet, so you never miss the next gentle story. And stay close, because we will travel deeper still through the secret alleys of history, giving voice to those who were once voiceless, one night at a time, until they are forgotten no more. Welcome again, dear listener, to this next chapter. of our quiet remembrance, where history becomes a lantern to guide you into peaceful dreams. And tonight, we return to the silent strength of a young woman whose courage held her sister safe, whose pain became a silent rebellion, and whose scars told a story the master could never truly erase. So please, if you have not yet done so, subscribe to this channel and click the bell icon so you never miss these calm journeys through forgotten stories. Because with each night, we walk together into the past, with respect, with softness, and with a sense of care for those who had none. So breathe slowly, settle into your pillow, and let your mind travel back once more to the Roman villa, where after the punishment, the girl lay for days on a straw mat, feverish, her wounds raw, tended by the gentle hands of other women who dabbed her cuts with wine and water, whose soft voices sang old lullabies in languages the master could never understand. And these songs stitched her spirit back together when nothing else could. And though the pain was sharp as a blade, she told herself that she had survived worse, that she had lived through the day her village burned, through the day she was sold like a clay pot, through the night she was forced to lie with a man who did not see her as human. And so this pain, though it seared her flesh, would not destroy her, and she clung to that belief, repeating it in the long dark hours, where the oil lamp burned low and the house fell silent, except for the distant barking of guard dogs. And slowly, day by day, she learned to stand again, to move through the villa with a measured step, to carry water without crying out when the muscles of her back tore at her with every movement. And the master, seeing that she did not die, seeing that she did not break, grew uneasy, because there is something dangerous about a woman who cannot be broken, something unsettling about a spirit that still burns after the body has been whipped. And though he continued to order her about, he found himself avoiding her gaze, because, even in silence, she reminded him of a truth he did not wish to face, that no amount of chains could steal the last piece of a person's heart. And so she worked, day after day, preparing bread, mending linens, brushing ash from the hearthstones, while behind her scars healed in crooked lines across her shoulders, a secret badge of bravery. And the other women began to look at her differently, not only with pity, but with pride, because she had taken their punishment and survived it for them. And in this way, she became a quiet leader, though no one dared to say so aloud. And one evening, as summer turned the air heavy with heat and the scent of figs ripening in the courtyard, the older women gathered around her with careful hands and offered her a simple gift, a woven bracelet of rush grass, hidden from the master's eyes, a symbol of their thanks, their loyalty, their sisterhood. And she wore it on her wrist, hidden under her sleeve, feeling its tiny weight as a promise that she was never alone. And that night, lying on her rough blanket, she turned the bracelet around and around, tracing each knot with trembling fingers, letting its roughness remind her she was more than a slave, more than a servant, that she was remembered and cherished. And in that moment she found a rare peace, breathing slowly, letting her eyes grow heavy, dreaming of rivers, dreaming of starlight. And I invite you, dear friend, to hold this dream with her, to remember how precious it is to be seen, to be valued, even in the smallest ways. And let that thought calm your mind, soften your muscles, allow your heartbeat to slow, because these stories are not only about pain, they are about survival, about the ways people carry hope like an ember, even in the coldest night. And tomorrow, when she rises again, she will feel that ember warming her heart, giving her courage to keep going, no matter what storms the master might bring. And as you rest, let that courage wrap around you too, a blanket of calm, a reminder that you are safe, you are free, you have power in your choices, while she had almost none. And let that gratitude deepen your breathing, steady your thoughts, and help you rest in quiet respect for those who came before. And stay with me, because next we will follow her through the changing seasons, seeing how the rhythm of the Roman villa shifted with the harvest, how the demands grew heavier, how the master's greed grew sharper, and how the young woman would be tested once more when a new overseer arrived, cruel and eager to break what the master could not. So please, if you have not yet, subscribe now so you will not miss the next chapter of this gentle remembering. Because together we can honor these stories, letting them live in the peace of your dreams. And as the seasons rolled forward, the grape harvest approached, and the villa was transformed into a place of endless movement. With carts arriving piled high with purple fruit, slaves ordered to tread the grapes, crush them, haul barrels to the storage caves, and the overseer, newly hired, a brutal man with scars on his cheek and an iron rod in his hand, barked orders. From dawn to dusk, striking anyone who dared to slow or falter. And for the girl, this time felt even more dangerous, because the new overseer seemed to take pleasure in breaking people, in watching them cry, and he noticed quickly that she walked with confidence, that others seemed to respect her, and that, to him, was a threat, and so he singled her out, ordering her to carry the heaviest loads, to scrub the stone presses long after everyone else had been dismissed, to serve in the master's house at night, and then return to the harvest by day, hoping to wear her down, to break the spark he saw in her, and she felt the strain, her body trembling with exhaustion, the wounds on her back reopening under the weight of grape barrels, her arms shaking as she tried to keep steady, but still she did not bow her head, and that made him furious. So one day, he decided to shame her in front of everyone, forcing her to strip off her tunic and show her scars to the other slaves, shouting that this was what happens to troublemakers. But instead of cowing them, a quiet solidarity spread through the crowd, because they knew she had taken those scars for them, that she had carried the punishment to save their lives. And the overseer saw this, saw their eyes, and grew afraid, because power is fragile, and if fear fails, power crumbles. And so the girl survived even this humiliation, gathering courage from the silent nods of her sisters, reminding herself that she was more than her wounds, that no man could own her heart. And later, in the dark, the other women came to her again, bringing herbs for her aches, water for her thirst, a tiny cloth to dry her tears, and they told her she was brave, that she was their hope, and she felt stronger hearing their words, stronger than any lash could make her. And I want you, dear listener, to feel that strength with her, to let it calm you, to remember that there are always people who stand together in darkness, even if their names are forgotten, and that bond is worth honoring, and worth letting yourself relax tonight, breathing deeply, letting go of tension, and trusting that you too can find courage in your own heart. So as the days grew colder and the harvest ended, the villa changed again, preparing for the winter season with heavy wool cloaks and smoky hearths, and the girl was ordered to mend blankets, to scrub soot from chimneys, to polish bronze lamps for the family's feasts. And in these days, she found small peace, because the work was indoors, away from the overseer's eyes, and though harsh, it was safer than the harvest, and she could steal moments to rest, to think, to remember who she was before, to whisper the name of her village to herself, over and over, so she would not lose. And this ritual became her prayer, a tiny litany of memory that no master could erase, and through that winter she grew strong again, her back healing, her spirit regrowing like green shoots under snow, waiting for the spring to rise. And, dear friend, as you listen, let this image calm you, a seed sleeping under frost, waiting for the warmth to return, steady and patient, because so much in life is about surviving until kinder days come. And as you breathe softly now, I invite you to trust that you, too, have roots strong enough to hold through any storm, and that you can rest tonight in safety, because you are free, you are cared for, you are valued. While she had to build her worth inside herself each night, and that is an incredible thing to respect. So please subscribe if you wish to keep walking with me through her world to see what will happen when the spring returns, and how the girl's dreams of freedom might slowly turn into something real, a spark that could become a flame. And stay with me as we move forward into that next chapter, honoring her story with quiet reverence and calm, letting it soothe you, until peaceful sleep arrives. For tonight, we remember her together. Welcome once again, dear listener, to this calm journey through forgotten memories, where tonight we return to our young woman, carrying her courage like a quiet flame through the cruel seasons of the Roman Empire. And I ask you now, before we begin, to subscribe to this channel and click the bell icon so you never miss these peaceful, respectful stories made to help you rest while honoring voices lost to time. Because each night we breathe together through the shadows, finding in these stories a calm light to guide you home to sleep. So take a slow, deep breath. Feel the softness of your pillow, and let me carry you back to the villa where the winter has lifted, where the air smells of damp earth and the promise of green returning, and our young woman has found new strength, standing taller, her wounds fading to faint lines that remind her of her own courage. And as the days grow longer, the master begins to plan new projects, calling for repairs to the villa, new tiles for the roof, and new marble statues to display his wealth. And the slaves are ordered to prepare lime for mortar, to haul stone from distant quarries, and the girl is assigned to carry water and mix clay for the builders, work that leaves her, arms aching, her skin covered in dust. But after the cruelty of harvest and winter, it feels almost like a relief, because at least the overseer cannot always watch her here, and she can steal quiet moments to talk to other workers, to share tiny scraps of news, and to hear whispers of something she has barely dared to believe. That somewhere far away, people are beginning to rise up, to challenge Rome's iron grip, to dream of a world without slavery. And these rumors come in pieces, carried by merchants, by travelers, even by soldiers who pass through boasting of new wars. And, though it seems impossible, the idea plants a seed in her heart, a dangerous hope. And as she works mixing the clay, she turns that idea over in her mind, wondering if one day there could be a place where no one is owned, where children stay with their mothers, where a woman's body belongs to her alone. And the thought is so bright it almost burns, and she holds it carefully, not daring to speak it aloud, yet nurturing it like a secret garden blooming inside her. And while the villa bustles with its repairs, she finds herself meeting a young man, another slave who has been sent to haul stone, a man with strong hands and a gentle voice, whose eyes are kind, and who asks her name in a hushed whisper. And for a moment she forgets how to answer, because no one has asked her that for so long. And when she tells him, she feels the name bloom on her tongue like a forgotten flower, and he smiles, repeating it softly, making it feel real again. And in the evenings, when the overseer has gone and the air is cool, they sometimes meet by the well, sharing bits of bread, stories of their childhoods, dreams that they do not dare share with anyone else. And for the first time, she feels something like love, small and quiet, but stronger than the walls that hold them. And they do not touch, not at first, because fear is too close, but in the way he listens, in the way he protects her from the harshest work, there is a tenderness that heals a part of her she thought was lost forever. And as the spring turns to summer, their secret friendship deepens, and together they begin to wonder if escape could be possible, if the stories of rebellions might reach even here, if they could slip away into the night and find a place where no one knew their names, where they could be free. And though every day the risk is great, they hold the dream together, because it feels less dangerous to dream with another heart beside yours. And dear friend, as you listen to this, I invite you to breathe calmly, to feel your own heart open to the possibility of gentle love, to remember that even in the worst places, a person can rediscover trust, rediscover hope, rediscover the right to be seen, and that is a powerful gift, worth holding close as you drift toward sleep, because in our story, the girl will need every spark of courage she has, for the overseer is growing suspicious, watching her more closely, questioning why she seems stronger, why she dares to smile. And one evening, as the workday ends, he confronts her, grabbing her arm with rough hands, demanding to know what secrets she hides, and she feels terror wash over her like ice. But she remembers the kindness of the young man, the quiet power of the women who healed her, and she does not break. She meets the overseer's stare with a calm defiance, and he curses her, shoving her away, but does not strike, because even he can sense that something unbreakable lives in her now. And later that night, she weeps with relief, not because she is afraid, but because for the first time she feels she has won a small victory. And that victory tastes sweeter than anything she has ever known. And as you rest tonight, dear listener, let that victory soothe you. Let it remind you that no matter how small a step forward might be, it is still precious. It is still yours. And in the days that follow, she continues to plot in secret, speaking to the young man in coded phrases, mapping the villa's walls in her mind, remembering guard changes, water routes, where food might be hidden, because freedom cannot come without careful planning. And though her heart trembles, it trembles with purpose now, not just fear. And with each passing day, her courage grows, and you, too, can carry that courage, letting it ease your breathing, letting it bring calm to your mind, because courage does not always roar. Sometimes it is a soft voice that whispers, "I will try again tomorrow." And our young woman repeats those words over and over, building her strength until the night comes when she is ready, when the moon is high and the household sleeps, when the guards are dozing and the air is warm enough to run barefoot. She grips the young man's hand, nods once, and they move together through the shadows, hearts pounding, breath tight, each step a prayer, each corner a test of their courage. And the villa seems endless, each doorway a danger. But somehow they slip past the kitchens, past the courtyard, past the sleeping dogs, through the outer gate, and then into the night beyond. And the world feels so huge, so terrifying, so free that they almost cannot believe it. They run until their lungs burn, until the stars blur overhead, until they fall to the ground, gasping, laughing, crying, because they have done it. They are free, for this moment at least. And though they know Rome will come for them, that the search will begin at sunrise, they have these precious hours, these irreplaceable hours, to be no one's property, to be only themselves. And that is worth everything, dear friend, worth every risk, every scar, every drop of sweat and blood, because freedom, once touched, changes a person forever. And as they rest under the open sky, she looks at the young man and sees in his eyes the same wonder, the same fierce determination, and they promise each other, softly, that they will keep going, keep running, keep surviving, until they find a place to build a new life. And I invite you now to hold that promise in your own heart, to believe with them, to let their courage become your comfort tonight, to know that you, too, have the right to dream, the right to run towards something better. And as you breathe slowly, gently, let this hope guide you toward sleep, because in our next chapter, their journey will truly begin, through forests and roads, through dangers and kindness, through everything that freedom demands. And I promise to walk with you through that story, one peaceful night at a time. So please subscribe if you have not yet, and join me again to see what awaits these two brave souls, running through the darkness into the possibility of light. Welcome once again, dear listener, to another gentle night of remembrance, where we honor voices that history nearly silenced, and where you can find calm rest while hearing the stories of those who survived unimaginable darkness. So before we begin, please subscribe to this channel and click the bell icon so you never miss these peaceful journeys. Because each story we share together is a way to heal, to respect, and to sleep more deeply with gratitude in your heart. And tonight, we continue the tale of our young woman who has fled the Roman villa under a silver moon, her heart pounding, her spirit trembling between fear and hope. And as she and the young man run into the forest, the night air feels impossibly large, carrying scents of pine and damp earth and a freedom so sharp it almost hurts. And though their bare feet ache on the rough ground, they do not stop, because to stop is to be caught, and to be caught is to be destroyed. And so they push forward, breathing in the dark, every sound magnified, every branch crackling like thunder, until finally, exhausted, they collapse near a stream, letting the cool water wash their hands and faces, letting themselves cry and laugh at the same time. Because freedom is overwhelming, and the young man, with a voice shaking with relief, tells her that he never believed he could really leave, that she was the reason he found courage, and she reaches for his hand, holding it tightly, realizing that for the first time in so many years, her hands are free to choose, free to hold what they wish. And that simple truth nearly breaks her heart with its power. And the stars above seem to burn brighter, as if blessing them, reminding them that no matter how many chains Rome forges, the night sky belongs to no one, and it will always watch over those who dare to hope. And as dawn begins to touch the horizon, they know they cannot stay by the stream, because patrols will be searching by sunrise. And so they rise again, tired but determined, and begin to walk northward, guided by scraps of rumor, by tiny hints that there might be friendly villages, rebels, or safe places where runaway slaves can find refuge. And each mile is hard, their bodies bruised, their stomachs empty, but the thought of being owned again is worse than any hunger, worse than any pain. And they cling to that thought like a shield, telling each other stories as they walk to keep their courage alive, sharing memories of family, of food, of festivals, building a tiny world together in words so they will not feel lost. And sometimes they fall silent, listening for danger, hiding in bushes when hooves drum along the road, because Roman soldiers still hunt them. And being caught means a punishment worse than death. But even so, they keep moving, one step at a time, because freedom, even a moment of it, is worth everything. And as days pass, they begin to find help, small kindnesses along the way, from farmers who leave bread by a fence, from shepherds who look the other way, from women who slip them cloth to cover their torn clothes. And these gestures become miracles to them, reminding them that not all hearts belong to Rome, and that solidarity is stronger than fear. And one night, as they rest under a fig tree, a young woman tells the young man about her mother's stories, about the festivals in her village, about how people would dance around a fire, laughing and singing. And for a moment, she smiles, a real open smile, the first in so long, and he tells her he wants to see that smile every day, even if they have to keep running for years. And the promise they make under those stars is simple but beautiful, that they will not give up, that they will build a life, no matter how far they must go. And dear friend, as you listen, let their hope remind you that every person deserves that freedom, that love, that chance, and that you too are worthy of rest, of peace, of safety. And as your breathing softens, feel how powerful the truth can be. And the next morning, they continue their journey, following a hidden path through olive groves and stony hills, always watching, always listening, but also always hoping. And in time they hear of a rebel camp, hidden beyond the mountains, where people gather who refuse to live under Rome's boot. And though the way is hard, they decide to risk it, because perhaps in that camp they can belong, they can be safe. And so they travel for days, feet torn, shoulders burned by the sun, living on roots and stream water, but they do not turn back. And finally, one evening, as the air turns golden and quiet, They see a thin trail of smoke rising from a grove of oaks, and when they come closer, they see fires burning. People gathered, faces wary but kind, and a woman steps forward, asking who they are. And when they explain, when they show the marks of their chains, she nods, embracing them, telling them they are welcome. And in that moment, everything changes, because they are no longer alone, no longer hunted, no longer just survivors, but part of something larger, a resistance that carries not only weapons but dreams. And that night, by the rebel fire, the young woman feels a new peace in her chest, something she has never known, something that feels like family, and she sleeps deeply for the first time, unafraid, letting her mind wander freely. And dear listener, as you rest, imagine that peace. Imagine a place where no one can claim you, where no one can take away your name. And let that feeling comfort you, because you are free to rest tonight, free to let go of worries, free to breathe, without chains. And in the morning, the rebels welcome them fully, teaching them to fight, to hide, to read secret messages. And though the young woman has never held a weapon, she learns, because freedom must be defended, and she will never go back, never be owned again. And as summer deepens, the camp becomes a small village of hope, with songs and laughter, with children playing, with people who care for one another, and our girl becomes part of them, learning to mend wounds, to cook for the fighters, to carry messages through the hills, and she feels her spirit grow strong again, no longer a ghost, but a living, breathing woman with dreams of her own. And sometimes she and the young man walk at night through the oak forest, hands intertwined, and talk of a future where there are no more slaves, where their children will never know chains. And though they know it may be a long fight, they are willing, because hope is stronger than fear, and that truth carries them through each day. And dear friend, as you drift towards sleep, let that courage remind you that no matter how dark the world feels, there are always people who will stand for justice, who will shelter the lost, who will build something better. And that thought can bring you comfort, can soften your breathing, can steady your heartbeat so you can rest without fear. And as the night grows deep around the rebel camp, with firelight dancing on the oak leaves, the young woman lies down on a woven mat, listening to the hush of the wind, and knows that this is the first place in so many years where she truly belongs. And I invite you now to hold that belonging with her, to feel how precious it is to be welcome, to be cared for, to be seen, and let it help you rest more easily, because you are safe here, you are respected here. And in our next chapter, we will follow her and the young man as they take the fight beyond the hills, spreading the message of freedom to other villages, carrying a spark that will one day light 1,000 fires against oppression. So please subscribe if you have not yet, and join me again as we walk with them into the dawn of their own power, one night at a time, until the world learns that no human being should ever live in chains again, not welcome again. Dear friend, to this peaceful night where we continue, a quiet journey of courage and hope, a journey woven with the strength of a young woman who refused to let her spirit die. And before we begin, I gently invite you to subscribe to this channel and click the bell icon so you never miss these soft, thoughtful stories that help you rest. Stories that remember voices long buried and bring them back to life in a calm, gentle way. Because each night we honor the resilience of people who survived impossible pain, and let that remind us to be grateful, to rest fully, to breathe more deeply. And tonight we return to our young woman, now part of the rebel camp in the shelter of the oaks, where days have begun to stretch in a strange, peaceful rhythm of community, of purpose, where she learns to sew torn tunics, to gather herbs for medicine, to help the elders who escaped Roman chains. And though the fear of capture is never far away, here she feels a safety that warms her bones, because no one owns her name anymore. And each evening as the sun fades, she walks with the young man who ran with her, sharing tiny hopes about the future, laughing softly, planning how one day they might plant a garden together, grow figs and barley, and watch the seasons pass in freedom. And these dreams are fragile, but precious, carried in whispered conversations around the rebel campfire. And each night she goes to sleep knowing she is no longer alone. That if the Romans come, she will not stand alone. And that courage soothes the old wounds in her heart, letting her heal in ways she never thought possible. And as time goes on, she becomes trusted in the camp, helping to carry messages across the hills to other rebel hideouts, learning secret codes and hand signs, how to slip past Roman patrols, how to gather news, and her memories of the villa become a kind of power, because she knows how Roman masters think, how they rule through fear, how they break people, and she uses that knowledge to help others escape, to plan rescues, to warn villages, and she becomes a quiet legend among the rebels, known as the woman with scars of iron and a heart of flame. And this reputation does not make her proud, but it gives her purpose, because she knows the Romans took everything from her once, but they will never take her courage, never again. And dear friend, as you listen to this, I invite you to hold that same strength inside yourself, to remember that you too can stand back up after your hardest days, that your spirit is yours alone, and no one can truly own it. So breathe slowly now. Feel your shoulders release, and let the night cradle you in this story, because it is a story of a woman finding not just freedom but belonging, not just survival but leadership. And that is something beautiful to honor. And as the seasons shift, the rebels hear news that Roman soldiers are moving toward the camp, that patrols are searching the forests, that a raid may come, and fear ripples through the people like a cold wind. But the girl stands tall, remembering every day she spent in the villa, every cruel look, every time she was ordered to bow, and she refuses to bow now, telling the rebels they must prepare, that they must stand their ground, and together they build defenses, dig trenches, sharpen spears, train even the smallest children to hide in caves if the Romans arrive. And in these long days of preparation, she grows stronger still, her muscles lean, her eyes sharp, her mind clear, and sometimes she wonders if she will survive a Roman attack. But even if she falls, she tells herself she will fall free, and that thought brings her peace, a peace deep enough that it reaches into her dreams, letting her sleep softly. And as the Roman banners draw nearer, bright red against the green forest, the rebels gather by the fire to say prayers, to sing old songs of freedom, and she sings with them, her voice rising through the trees, a voice once silenced but now powerful. And when the enemy finally comes, crashing through the oak groves with swords and shouting, the girl does not run. She stands shoulder to shoulder with people who believe in her. And together they fight, throwing stones, spears, anything they can. And the forest echoes with the cries of those who refuse to be slaves. And though the battle is fierce and terrible, they hold their ground, forcing the Romans back, showing them that no chain is strong enough to crush a heart that knows it is free. And when dawn comes, the survivors look around at their bruises and their cuts, and know they have done something impossible. They have stood up to Rome, and they are still alive. And dear listener, let that thought give you courage, that even the greatest empire could not destroy people who fought for each other, that you too can stand up to your fears, your doubts, your pain, and still be here, breathing and resting and healing. So as you close your eyes tonight, feel that hope like a gentle flame inside you, steady and warm, and know that you are safe now, that no one can order you to kneel, that you are free to rest. And as the rebels bury their dead and tend their wounded, the girl is among them, bandaging arms, carrying water, singing lullabies to children who are too young to fight, but brave enough to hope. And she sees the young man who ran with her, who fought with her, who still stands, and they embrace. crying tears of relief, because they know the fight is not over, but this victory is theirs, and it matters. And in the days that follow, word spreads through the countryside. Stories of a woman who once served in a Roman villa, who escaped, who fought, who would not break. And more slaves begin to dream, begin to plan, begin to believe that maybe they, too, can be free. And so the spark spreads, village to village, carried by whispers and courage, growing into something Rom cannot crush. And our girl feels this fire building, a movement far greater than herself, and she promises to keep leading, to keep protecting, to keep teaching, so that no child will ever grow up thinking slavery is all they deserve. And this vow becomes her reason to rise each morning, to stand even when her body is tired, to smile even when her scars ache, because freedom's worth every sacrifice. And dear friend, as you lie in your bed now, hear that promise in her heart, and let it steady your own heart. Let it calm you, because there is power in remembering, in witnessing, in caring, and you are part of that simply by listening, by keeping her story alive, by letting her courage become your quiet inspiration. So breathe deeply now, let your eyelids grow heavy, feel the gentle weight of your blanket, and know you are safe. You are free, you are cherished, while so many before us were not. And in the next chapter of her journey, she will travel beyond the rebel camp, carrying the stories of her sisters to new places, teaching other villages to rise. And I promise to walk with you through that chapter too, with calm words and steady breath. So please subscribe if you have not yet, and join me again as we continue following the girl with a heart of flame, one peaceful night at a time, until her story is honored as it deserves, without fear, without forgetting, forever. The girl who had once carried water and scrubbed floors in the Roman villa now found herself moving through villages as a messenger of freedom, her steps confident, her voice steady, her scars no longer shameful, but honored like medals among the people who listened to her stories. And with every place she visited, she shared the truth of what she had lived, what she had survived, and how it was possible, even after years in chains, to rise and breathe freely again. And these words ignited something powerful among the villagers, making farmers, herders, potters, and children pause to listen, to imagine what it would be like to live without fear of Roman soldiers arriving to drag them away. And in those moments, she saw sparks catch in their eyes, the same sparks that once grew in her own heart, and she vowed to protect that light, however she could, traveling with the young man who still held her hand through every challenge, whose loyalty had never wavered, and together they taught others simple lessons of resistance. How to slip away from patrols, how to pass messages, how to hide precious seeds and grain from Roman tax collectors, how to build alliances beyond fear. And this work, though dangerous, gave her more strength than she had ever known, because it meant no one else would feel alone as she had. No girl would wonder if her life mattered. No child would believe they deserved the whip. And that became her reason to breathe each day, even when the path was hard, even when cold rain soaked her skin, even when she was so tired she could barely stand, she still rose, because the mission was bigger than her. And in the quiet of night, she sometimes cried, letting the tears flow, in secret, but then she would remember her sisters, the other women who once sat with her around a tiny lamp, whispering dreams, and their courage would hold her up again, reminding her that tears were not weakness, but proof that her heart was still alive, still human. And as she crossed new lands, she saw so many faces who shared the same wounds, the same fears, and she felt a kind of family grow around her. A family of people bound not by blood, but by the shared refusal to bow. And dear friend, as you listen, let your breathing soften with this thought, because you are part of that family. Too, whenever you remember them, whenever you honor their stories. And as she moved on, she heard word of another villa, far from the rebel camp, where a group of enslaved girls were being prepared to be sent to the brothels of a Roman port city. And her spirit caught fire with rage and with purpose, because no girl deserved that fate, and she made a vow, quiet and absolute, that she would find a way to free them, even if it cost her life. And so she planned, watching the villa from the trees, counting the guards, listening for weaknesses, gathering scraps of information until she could see every doorway, every window, every flaw in the walls. And with a group of rebels who trusted her leadership, she crept under moonlight to the gates, cutting the lock with tools she had learned to use, slipping inside like a ghost, and the girls inside were terrified at first. But when they saw the rebel woman, a woman with scars and steady eyes, they began to hope, and she told them quietly that they were leaving, that no man would own them. Tonight, and though some were too weak to stand, she carried them herself, one by one, through the darkness, into the arms of freedom. And when dawn rose, they hid in the hills, watching Roman guards discover the empty cells, shouting in confusion, but unable to catch them. And in that moment, she felt something close to joy, a fierce, bright joy, because the empire had been robbed of its cruelty, and these girls would now have a chance to live, to heal, to dream. And as you rest tonight, let that same hope warm your heart. Let it soften your worries, because courage, even a small act of courage, can change the world. For someone. And that is worth remembering each time you breathe. And in the days that followed, the rescued girls began to trust again, leaning on each other, learning to laugh, to sing, to cook food over a fire without fear of masters shouting. And the young woman helped them settle into the rebel camp, watching them grow stronger each day. And sometimes she would sit by the fire and tell them stories of her own journey, letting them know that scars did not mean they were ruined, only that they had survived. And those girls would watch her with shining eyes, seeing a kind of hero in her, even though she never wanted to be a hero, only free. And those evenings were among the sweetest she had ever known, because they were filled with kindness and songs instead of orders and beatings. And she held on to that sweetness, letting it heal the broken parts inside her. And she dreamed again of a simple life, of a small house with figs and wild herbs, of children who would never know what chains felt like. And though she knew Rome was still vast and dangerous, she believed with her whole heart that change was possible, that even one woman with courage could light a path. And that belief carried her through days of fear, through nights of worry, through every painful memory, until it became unshakable. And dear friend, I invite you to hold that same unshakable hope inside you as you rest, letting each breath remind you that you are safe, that you are free, that you deserve rest and peace. And as the rebels grew stronger, she traveled further, carrying messages to distant villages, finding allies who were willing to help, weaving together a network of people who refused to be silent. And though the Romans tried to crush them, tried to frighten them, tried to buy their loyalty with coins and threats, the girl reminded them that no coin could buy back a stolen life. No threat could kill a dream that had already bloomed. And so they kept going, one night at a time, one hidden song at a time, until freedom became something real enough to touch. And even the smallest children in the hills would whisper her name, would say, "She is the one who helped us believe." And though that made her shy, she accepted it. Because if her scars could give someone else strength, then they were worth every moment of pain. And as you breathe now, slowly and calmly, imagine that courage reaching you, a soft light that glows inside your heart, helping you rest, helping you feel safe, because you are part of that dream too, simply by listening, simply by caring. And in the next days, the girl planned another journey, across a dangerous road toward a Roman garrison, where rumors said dozens of children were held as tribute, to be trained as slaves for the army. And she knew she could not leave them there, could not let those small souls grow up believing they belonged to Rome. So she called upon the rebels, gathered a small band of fighters, and together they plotted a rescue so daring it seemed impossible. But they did not hesitate, because children should never pay for the greed of empires. And with quiet steps, they waited until a storm broke overhead, rain and thunder hiding their approach, and they moved through the mud, past guards too busy sheltering from the rain, slipping into the barracks, cutting ropes, lifting sleeping children into their arms, whispering comfort, promising safety, and when the guards discovered the empty beds, the rebels were already gone, vanishing into the night like spirits. And the children, though frightened, soon began to laugh and play once they saw no whips, no shouting masters, no walls to hold them. And the girl watched them with tears in her eyes, knowing that this was the reason she had survived. This was the reason she had fought, so that these small hearts could grow up in sunlight instead of shadow. And dear friend, I ask you as you drift toward peaceful sleep to hold these children gently in your thoughts, to wish them safety, to wish them a world where no child is ever forced to bow, and let that kindness calm your mind tonight, letting your shoulders soften, letting your breath grow warm and steady. Because when we remember those who suffered, we honor their bravery, and that is the first step to building a world without chains. And as the girl settled the children in a safe place, helping them eat and rest and learn to trust again, she felt a new hope rise in her chest, because she could see the future taking shape, one freed person at a time. And that hope gave her all the strength she would ever need. The girl who had rescued the children from the Roman barracks found herself more determined than ever, carrying their laughter in her heart like a shield against fear. And as days passed, she helped them settle in a hidden village deep in the forest, a place where no soldiers came, where no taxes were collected, where no whips cracked against small backs. And these children began to grow stronger, their cheeks pink with fresh food, their eyes clear with the simple wonder of safety. And each night, as she watched them sleep under blankets instead of chains, she promised herself that this was only the beginning, that so many more needed to be freed. And though the path ahead would be long and full of danger, she no longer doubted her purpose, for the rebel camps were growing, word spreading across valleys and rivers that there was a woman who would stand against Rome, who had walked away from slavery and refused to bow again. And people began to join them, bringing skills, knowledge, courage, and as the numbers rose, so did the hope, until even farmers and shepherds who once trembled at a Roman patrol dared to hide food for fugitives, dared to whisper that freedom was worth fighting for. And in those hushed fireside gatherings, the girl stood with her head high, sharing every lesson she had learned, showing scars not as marks of shame, but as proof that a person could survive and still love, still hope, still dream. And that message traveled far beyond what she could have imagined, carried by travelers, merchants, even sympathetic soldiers, who had seen enough blood to question their orders. And in those early spring nights, with the earth soft and green, she helped build a training ground where people could learn to defend themselves, where old men showed boys how to sling stones, where women practiced hiding messages in woven cloth, where a grandmother taught a child to memorize a safe path through the woods. And all of it was resistance. All of it was power growing. And though the girl sometimes feared the Romans would come in force and crush them all, she pushed that fear away with steady breath, remembering that freedom had never been given freely, that it must be claimed, guarded, rebuilt each day. And so she worked tirelessly, from dawn to dusk, mending shoes, teaching girls how to stitch, helping build walls of thorn and rock to slow any invaders. And at night, as she lay down beside the young man who had run with her from the villa so long ago, she would place her head on his chest and listen to his heartbeat, reminding herself that even one moment of rest in safety was a victory, and that the next day they would rise again. And dear friend, as you listen to my voice, let that quiet determination settle in your own heart, so you can sleep knowing you are safe, you are free, you are enough, just as you are. And in the weeks that followed, the Romans indeed came searching, marching in rows of iron and leather, looking for rebels to crush. But the girl and her people hid like foxes, slipping through forest shadows, leading patrols into traps, scattering so no one could be caught. And they watched as Rome grew frustrated, unable to break their spirit. And in those moments, the girl felt something close to triumph, for she saw the fear in the soldiers' eyes, saw the way they began to question why they were chasing farmers and mothers and children instead of facing real enemies. And she realized that every time a soldier hesitated, their movement grew stronger, because even Rome could not defeat the courage that bloomed in simple hearts. And as summer arrived, they grew bolder, sending scouts into Roman towns to learn schedules, to pass messages, to smuggle food out for the hidden camps. And though there were risks, though capture meant torture or death, they refused to live as slaves again, and that refusal became a banner under which they marched, quietly, steadily, step by step towards something better. And the girl took on more than she ever dreamed she could, guiding groups through the night, comforting mothers who missed lost children, singing lullabies to orphans, whispering prayers over the graves of those who did not survive. And still she kept going, because giving up meant Rome won, and that was a thought she could never bear. And as you breathe softly now, let that same steady courage soothe you, reminding you that your own struggles, your own fears, are survivable too, that each night of rest gives you strength to rise again tomorrow. And as the girl built alliances with more rebel leaders, she learned to plan in ways she never imagined, drawing maps on scraps of bark, marking Roman outposts, sending coded messages tied to bird feathers, gathering knowledge like a warrior gathers weapons. And she realized that while she had once felt powerless, now she was powerful beyond measure. And the young man at her side saw it too, saw the fire in her eyes, and told her softly that she was the reason he would never bow again. And those words lit something in her soul, a warmth that stayed even when rain beat down and hunger made her dizzy. And she held on to that warmth like a lantern through the darkness, guiding her forward. And as you rest, dear friend, let that same lantern light your way into peaceful dreams, because you deserve peace, you deserve rest. You deserve to know that freedom is possible, even after the hardest days. And as the girl watched the children playing, watched the elders teaching them songs from long before Rome, she felt sure that no empire could ever fully kill the spirit of a people who remembered who they were. And that certainty gave her a calmness as deep as sleep itself. And in the coming weeks, she would help plan an even bigger mission to free men working in a Roman mine, men who had been chained underground for so many years they barely remembered sunlight. And though the risk was higher than ever, she knew she could not leave them behind. So she gathered her strongest rebels, sent scouts to map the tunnels, studied the guards' habits, and prayed to any god who might listen for one more miracle. Because these men deserved a chance to breathe clean air, to feel the wind, to see the sky. And dear friend, as your eyes grow heavy, hold that prayer with her. Let it give you a sense of calm faith, because sometimes hope is the strongest weapon of all. And the night before the mission, the girl sat alone for a while, thinking of the road behind her. The little girl who once cried in a Roman market, the young woman who took lashes to protect her sisters, the fighter who now led others to freedom. And she gave herself permission to feel proud, to believe she had become more than Rome ever meant her to be, and that pride wrapped around her like a warm blanket, steadying her for what was to come. And in the darkness, when the moment arrived, she rose, breathing slow and calm, ready to face any danger, because the men waiting in chains were counting on her. And as she crept through the night with her rebels, past guards who slept in drunken carelessness, She held the memory of her mother's lullabies close, letting that love be her shield, and when they reached the mouth of the mine, she whispered to her companions that they were there not only to free bodies, but to free dreams, because a person without dreams is truly enslaved. And those words gave them courage as they slipped into the tunnels. Knives drawn, hearts pounding, and what happened next was a chaos of shouts, of frightened guards, of men blinking in disbelief as their chains were cut, their hands pulled toward freedom. And though there was blood, though there was pain, the mission worked, and when dawn came, dozens of men stood on a hilltop looking at the sunrise for the first time in years. And the girl knew that this moment was worth every scar on her back, every fear she had swallowed, every night she had cried. Alone, because this was victory. Not just for herself, but for everyone who ever thought they were too small to fight. And dear friend, as you sink into rest, let that victory comfort you. Let it remind you that even in a hard world, people can choose compassion, can choose courage, can choose to help each other stand, and that choice is what keeps hope alive. So breathe softly now, feeling safe, feeling warm, feeling proud of all who came before you, and sleep knowing you are part of their legacy, simply by remembering, simply by caring. And as the girl led the freed miners back to the forest, promising them food, shelter, dignity, she felt ready for whatever Rome might do next, because she had found an unbreakable truth in herself, a truth stronger than chains, stronger than fear, stronger even than death itself. The girl who had once been forced to kneel on cold stone floors now stood upon green hills, leading men and women who carried the same fire in their eyes, a fire lit by years of pain and made unstoppable by the taste of freedom. And as the freed miners followed her into the forest, blinking against sunlight, they had almost forgotten. She saw their faces transform from doubt to wonder, from fear to the quiet power of hope. And she knew in that moment that what they had built was more than a band of rebels. It was a family bound by survival, by courage, and by the dream of a life without chains. And in the days after the rescue, they tended to wounds, shared food, told stories around the campfire until late into the night. And for the first time, those broken men began to laugh again, their voices rough but alive. And hearing that laughter made the girl's heart ache in the sweetest way, because it was proof that Rome had not truly destroyed them, and could never destroy the human spirit. And as you breathe calmly now, dear friend, let that thought settle your mind. Because no matter how strong a tyrant seems, the heart can still rise, can still heal, can still find rest. And while the camp grew, scouts began to bring news from the wider world, telling of new Roman taxes, new punishments, new raids. And the girl listened carefully, knowing each piece of news was a clue, a map of where pain might be hiding, where people might be waiting for her help. And she refused to turn away from any story, no matter how small, because every person deserved a chance at freedom, every person deserved to breathe without fear. And so she gathered a group of the strongest fighters, old and young together, and began planning more rescues, drawing maps in the dust, remembering every doorway, every guard's routine, and teaching even the smallest children how to stay silent when soldiers came. Because safety was no longer just luck, it was something they would defend together. And as the days passed, their ranks grew, strangers coming from distant villages, women who had hidden their bruises for years, men who had watched their brothers carried away in chains, children who had been born in slavery but refused to grow old in it. And each time someone new arrived, the girl took their hand, looked them in the eyes, and told them that they were welcome, that they were seen, that their pain mattered. And you, dear friend, as you rest, I hope you can feel that same welcome, that same sense of being enough, of being worthy of care, because every person deserves that, no matter what scars they carry. And in those nights under the oak trees, with the fire crackling low, and the songs of free voices rising to the stars. The girl felt a kind of peace she had never known before. A peace built not on silence and obedience, but on love and loyalty. And that peace was powerful, stronger than any fortress. And as summer deepened, they heard of a caravan carrying girls toward a Roman slave market on the coast, and she knew. In her bones she could not ignore it. So once again, she made a plan, gathered her friends, prepared supplies, and set off through the winding roads to find that caravan before it reached the city. And the journey was long, over dusty hills, through sudden rainstorms, with dangers waiting behind every tree. But her heart did not waver, because she had decided long ago that no child, no girl, no person should be bought or sold ever again. And when they found the caravan, guarded by men in iron helmets and polished swords, she did not hesitate. She struck like a storm, her rebels swarming the guards, breaking the locks, freeing the girls whose eyes went from terror to stunned relief in an instant. And in that chaos of freedom, the girl felt once more what she had. Felt in the mine, a fierce certainty that this was her path, her reason to survive all those years ago. And as they led the rescued girls away, hiding them in caves until it was safe to travel, she promised them softly that no one would hurt them again, and those promises were sacred. And she meant them with every beat of her heart. And dear friend, as you listen, I hope you can let that sense of safety sink into your bones, because you too are worthy of peace, worthy of rest, worthy of a night without fear. And as the girl returned to the camp, her arms sore, her body bruised, but her spirit unbroken, she found the young man waiting for her, the same one who had run with her so long ago, and he took her hands in his and told her that he was proud, that he had always believed she was born for something greater than chains. And for a moment she let herself cry, because even warriors need to be held, and in his embrace she felt steady again, ready to keep going. And as the weeks turned into months, their movement grew, until even Roman merchants carried stories of the girl with the scars who freed entire villages. And Rome grew more afraid, sending more soldiers, raising more taxes, trying to crush the spirit they could not fully understand. And yet, no matter what they tried, more and more people refused to bow, refused to break, refused to forget who they were before the empire took their freedom. And each night, as the girl lay down to rest, she whispered to the stars that she would never give up, and that she would fight until every last chain was broken. And as you breathe softly now, imagine those stars, steady and eternal, holding your own dreams safe while you sleep, because hope is as wide as the sky, and no one can steal it if you guard it close. And the girl taught her people that lesson again and again, teaching them songs that reminded them of home, teaching them how to grow food in hidden gardens, how to make medicine from herbs, how to tell stories to their children that were full of courage instead of fear. And those stories grew like wildflowers, unstoppable, carrying forward a truth that even Rome could not burn away. And that truth was that every life matters, that no one is born to be owned. And dear friend, I invite you to hold that truth with you tonight, breathing slowly, letting it calm your mind, letting it settle your spirit, because tomorrow you will wake stronger, the way she woke stronger, and that is a precious gift. And as the girl looked across the camp one evening, seeing fires glowing, seeing children sleeping safe, seeing men and women laugh without fear, she realized she had built something powerful, something no empire could fully destroy. And that realization became her anchor, holding her steady through every challenge. And in the next days, she would face even more, because word came of a Roman fortress being built deeper in the hills, meant to crush the rebels forever. And she knew they could not wait, could not hide. They would have to stand and fight. And though that thought made her hands shake, she breathed through it, remembering every victory, every scar that had turned to strength. every child she had saved, and she told herself that she was ready. And as you close your eyes tonight, I hope you feel that same readiness in your heart, the quiet belief that you can face hard things and survive. And in the coming night, as she prepared her fighters, as she counted arrows and checked food, and whispered final instructions, she looked around at faces she loved, faces that had once been hopeless, and saw only courage reflected back at her. And she promised them they would stand together, and that promise rang through the dark like a blessing, wrapping around them, holding them close, and as they moved toward the fortress, silent and determined, she felt no fear, only love, and that love was stronger than iron, stronger than Rome, stronger than death itself. And dear friend, as you rest, let that love wrap around you too. Let it warm your breath, steady your heartbeat, and bring you to peaceful dreams, because you are safe, you are free, and you are worthy of every gentle hope that lives inside you, just as she was, just as they all were forever. The night before the attack on the Roman fortress was quiet, except for the sounds of the rebels moving carefully through the trees, checking their weapons, tying scraps of cloth around their feet to muffle their steps. And the girl watched them with a steady calm in her eyes, knowing that everything they had built, every breath of freedom they had shared, depended on what would happen in the next hours. And though fear tried to creep into her heart, she refused to let it stay, pushing it aside with the same determination that had carried her through every beating, every loss, every night she had spent on a cold stone floor. And as the moon climbed high, she stood before her people, reminding them of what they fought for, telling them that no one was born to be chained, that no empire could own their souls. And those words rippled through the crowd like a warm wind, steadying trembling hands, calming wild hearts. And when they moved out, slipping like shadows toward the fortress walls, there was no panic, only focus, only the shared knowledge that they had chosen this fight for themselves, and that, no matter the cost, they would stand together. And as they reached the walls, the girl climbed first, her arms strong from years of hard labor, her mind sharp as a blade, guiding others to follow. And they spread across the fortress, like a quiet storm, cutting ropes, breaking locks, opening gates for more rebels to pour through. And the Romans, caught half asleep and unprepared, stumbled out of their barracks in confusion, meeting a force they had never expected. And in those chaotic moments, the girl felt time slow, remembering the faces of every person she had ever freed, every child she had carried, every tear she had dried, and that memory became her shield as she moved through the fortress, striking down soldiers who tried to drag rebels away, freeing prisoners from dark cells, shouting for them to run, to live, to never bow again. And the fortress shook with the power of their rage, their hope, their unstoppable will to break the chains forever. And dear friend, as you breathe calmly now, let that unstoppable hope remind you of your own power, your own right to rest safely tonight, because you are free. And as the sun began to rise beyond the fortress towers, the rebels had driven the Romans away, the walls reclaimed, the gates thrown open to let the world see that even the strongest empire could be challenged. And as the girl stood on the battlements, wind in her hair, she felt the weight of her journey settle across her shoulders. Every scar, every bruise, every sleepless night woven together into a strength that could never be taken away. And she closed her eyes for a moment, letting herself breathe, letting herself believe that this was real, that she had survived and triumphed, and that the people who stood around her, cheering with raised fists, were no longer slaves, but family, allies, sisters, and brothers in freedom. And that thought was worth more than all the gold Rome could ever steal. And in the days that followed, they repaired the fortress walls, built new beds, made kitchens to feed the hungry, tended to the wounded with herbs and song and gentle hands, and turned a place that had once been built for cruelty into a sanctuary, a place where no one would be punished for speaking, for loving, for dreaming. And each night, as the girl lay down to rest, she listened to the sound of free voices, to children giggling, to old men telling stories without fear. And those sounds became a lullaby more precious than any she had known as a child. And dear friend, as you rest tonight, let those sounds fill your mind, letting you breathe softer, letting you feel safe, because the world can be rebuilt when people refuse to bow. And that is a lesson she carried in her heart every day, reminding everyone that freedom was not a gift, but a right, something worth guarding every dawn, every dusk. And as news spread that the fortress had fallen, people from even farther villages came to see it, bringing offerings of grain, of cloth, of stories, asking to join, asking to learn how to fight. And the girl welcomed them all, never turning anyone away, because she had once been alone and knew how painful that was. And she swore no one would ever feel alone here, not while she still breathed. And each time someone told her thank you, she would shake her head gently and say it was not thanks she wanted, only the promise that they would pass on the courage, that they would keep telling the stories, that they would build a world where no child grew up in chains. And those promises became the walls of their new community, stronger than stone, because they were built with loyalty and love. And the girl walked through the rebuilt fortress each morning, smiling at women who were teaching children how to read, at men who were planting gardens where soldiers once trained, at elders who taught songs that had been banned. And she felt peace so deep it made her knees shake, because after so many years of pain, she had never thought peace was possible. And yet here it was, blooming like wildflowers through broken stone. And as you breathe now, let that blooming calm your heart. Let it remind you that even after your hardest storms, something gentle can grow again. And you deserve that gentleness. You deserve to rest. You deserve to know that no empire, no cruelty, can ever fully own your spirit. And when rumors came of Roman reinforcements marching toward them, the girl did not flinch, because she had learned that fear could only control you if you let it. And she gathered her fighters, held their hands, looked them in the eye, and told them that together they could stand. And they believed her, because they had seen her face down the impossible before, and they would follow her through any darkness. And dear friend, I hope you carry that same bravery in your heart tonight, knowing you are not alone, not alone, that there are always others who will stand beside you, who will help you rise again. And as the girl watched the horizon for the dust of marching soldiers, she felt steady, stronger than any army, because she had love at her back, she had hope in her hands, and those were weapons Rome could never match. And in the silence before the next battle, she closed her eyes, prayed softly for everyone she had saved, for everyone who still needed saving, and for the strength to continue. And that prayer, dear friend, is yours too, if you want it, a prayer for peace, for courage, for gentle dreams tonight. So breathe softly, let go of today's worries, let your shoulders soften, because you are safe now. You are warm now, you are free now. And as the girl stood ready, hearing the distant tramp of Roman boots, she knew in her bones that they could never chain her again, that even if they burned the fortress, tore down every stone, they could never burn the songs in her heart, could never steal the stories now carried in every freed soul. And she would rise again and again and again, because freedom once tasted cannot be forgotten. And as you drift toward sleep, hold that truth close. Let it settle over you like a soft blanket, reminding you that you are strong, you are worthy, and you can dream without fear, just as she dreamed, until her dream became real and changed the world forever. The girl stood on the high walls of the fortress she and her people had reclaimed, watching the sun slip low behind. The forest, painting the sky in soft colors of peach and gold. And in that quiet light, she felt the burden of everything she had carried. Every wound and every fear, but also the joy of knowing that she had survived, and that so many others had survived with her, their hearts beating together in defiance of the empire that tried to crush them. And as the first evening stars appeared, she closed her eyes for a moment and remembered the girls she had freed from the brothels, the men she had pulled from the mines, the children who had once been too afraid to speak, but now ran barefoot through courtyards laughing. And that memory brought her a peace deeper than any river, because it was proof that courage could rebuild a broken world. And as she looked out over the camp, she saw people preparing for another night, lighting small fires, singing soft songs in their old languages, telling stories that had once been forbidden, and that sound felt like a warm blanket around her shoulders, reminding her that no matter how many soldiers Rome sent, they could never erase these songs, could never steal this hope, and you, dear friend, as you listen now, can let that same warmth calm you, knowing you are safe and free in your own bed, breathing slowly, your heartbeat steady, as she drew in a long breath and turned back to the courtyard where her friends waited, people who had trusted her through the hardest storms, and she told them quietly that she was ready to keep defending what they had built, ready to face any new threat, because freedom was worth every drop of sweat, every scar, every tear. And they nodded, some smiling, some crying, because they all knew what they had done was something powerful, something sacred, and in the days that followed, they trained together, planting traps along the forest roads, sending scouts to watch for Roman banners, gathering supplies, so no one would go hungry even if they were surrounded. And the girl moved through it all with calm focus, her hands steady, her voice soft but unbreakable, reminding everyone that fear was normal, but it could not rule them. And as night after night passed without attack, they began to believe they might actually hold the fortress, might actually keep it safe as a home for those with nowhere else to go. And each morning they rose stronger, more confident, planting herbs in clay pots, patching broken windows, turning the harsh walls of Roman power into a place of welcome, a place of healing. And every time she saw a child sleep peacefully, she felt her own spirit heal a little more, because for so long she had thought there was no peace left in her. But now it bloomed again, gentle and soft, like wildflowers after a storm. And as the weeks turned warmer, people brought word of other rebellions rising far away, other brave men and women who had been inspired by her story. And though that made her shy, it also made her proud, because it meant she was no longer fighting alone, no longer carrying the dream on her shoulders by herself. And that was how freedom spread, one small act of courage growing like ripples in a pond. And dear friend, I want you to hold that image in your mind as you rest, those ripples spreading outward, reaching you, reminding you that even the tiniest act of kindness, the smallest bit of bravery, can change someone's life. And as you breathe calmly now, let that truth comfort you. Because you matter, you are enough, you are worthy of peace, just as she was, just as they all were. And one evening, as the sun dipped low and torches were lit along the fortress wall, the girl gathered her closest companions, including the young man who had stood by her since that first night of escape, and she spoke to them softly, saying that she believed it was time to take their hope beyond these walls, to help more villages, to show the world that Rome could be beaten, not with hatred alone, but with love, with the unstoppable power of people who refused to bow. And they listened, quiet and wide-eyed, and then one by one they agreed, because they knew there were still so many waiting to be freed. And so they planned, mapping the roads, preparing packs of food, setting aside herbs for medicine, arranging safe places to hide if they were chased. And the girl felt that old tremor of fear in her belly, but she breathed through it, steady and calm, reminding herself that fear was only dangerous if it stopped you from moving forward, and she would never let it stop her again. And as the night deepened, She walked along the walls alone, tracing her fingers over the stone, thanking it silently for giving them safety. And then she prayed to every spirit she could name, asking for courage, for wisdom, for the strength to keep protecting those who trusted her. And as she opened her eyes to the star-filled sky, she felt a quiet certainty rise inside her, the knowledge that no matter what happened next, she had already changed the world simply by refusing to give up. And dear friend, I invite you to hold that certainty tonight as you drift to sleep, letting your breath soften, letting your shoulders relax, feeling the comfort of knowing you have made it through so many storms already, and you will keep rising, just like her, no matter what. And as morning came, the girl gathered her rebels, sharing food, giving gentle hugs, reminding each one of them that they were brave and good and strong. And together they set out from the fortress, moving through fields of blooming flowers, the air sweet and bright, their steps steady and sure. And though danger still waited, they no longer feared it the same way, because they had each other. And that bond was stronger than any chain, stronger than any empire, stronger even than death. And in the days that followed, they traveled from village to village, meeting people whose voices had been stolen, whose families had been torn apart. And they listened, they comforted, they promised to help. And whenever they could, they taught them how to stand up, how to hide, how to fight, how to survive. And each act of help became another seed of resistance, spreading like wildflowers across the empire, impossible to fully uproot. And as the girl watched mothers weep with relief, watched children taste freedom for the first time, she felt her heart swell with a kind of joy so fierce it almost hurt, because this was the life she had once thought was impossible. And yet here it was, real, growing, unstoppable. And dear friend, as you close your eyes tonight, I hope you feel that same unstoppable hope settle inside you, letting you dream without fear, letting you trust that tomorrow can be softer, can be safer, can be kinder, and you deserve that tomorrow, just as they did, and in the quiet of a starry night. Sitting near a small cooking fire, the girl shared a piece of bread with a young man who still walked beside her. And for a moment, they both simply smiled, no words needed, because they understood each other perfectly. And in that silent understanding, there was peace, a peace no Roman law could ever destroy. And that peace, dear friend, is yours too tonight, if you want it, waiting to settle into your bones as you rest, reminding you that you are not alone. You are never truly alone, because stories like these carry us, hold us, teach us, and help us feel safe. So let this story hold you now, breathing slow and calm, letting your eyelids grow heavy, knowing that you are enough, you are worthy, and you are free, just as they became free, and together we can keep that freedom alive, one gentle dream at a time. The girl and her companions moved from village to village, carrying the quiet flame of freedom like a lantern through the darkness of Rome's long night. And everywhere they went, they found people who had been waiting, sometimes without even knowing they were waiting, for someone to show them that hope was possible. And each village they entered held the same fear in its eyes, the same stories of children taken, of fathers beaten, of mothers forced to serve in silence. But with each new story, the girl listened patiently, gently, letting people pour out years of pain, because she had learned long ago that healing began with being heard. And when the tears fell, she did not turn away. She held hands. She sang songs in soft voices. She reminded them that no empire could own their hearts, and little by little, faces began to lift again. Shoulders straightened, and people realized they could stand, they could fight, they could hope, and that realization was worth more than any gold, because it gave them back a piece of themselves. And dear friend, as you breathe calmly now, let that thought rest in your heart that you, too, are allowed to hope, allowed to heal, allowed to stand tall, just like they did, and the girl saw to it that no one was left alone, even the weakest, even the most afraid, because she knew too well how the darkness could twist around your mind when you felt forgotten, and she refused to let anyone feel forgotten ever again. And as the weeks passed, her small band grew, turning into a quiet army of kindness and resistance, teaching even the smallest children that they had value, that their dreams mattered, that their laughter was precious. And sometimes at night, the girl would lie awake under a sky bright with stars, thinking of how far she had come, from a place where her name had been taken, where her body was owned, to this place where she was a leader, where her voice was listened to, where she had built something bigger than herself. And in those nights, she let tears slip down her cheeks, not tears of grief, but tears of release, of gratitude, of relief. And dear friend, as you listen to this, I hope you let your own heart release its heavy weight, trusting that you are safe, that you can rest, that tomorrow will wait for you kindly. And as summer turned the fields golden, the rebels helped people harvest grain without paying Roman. Taxes taught them how to store food secretly, how to hide their children from census takers, how to disappear if patrols arrived, and with each act, they stole a little more power from the empire, giving it back to the people who had been starved of it for so long. And word of the girl's courage spread far beyond what she could ever have dreamed, until even merchants in great cities spoke her name with respect. Even soldiers began to question their orders, and that shift, so small, so slow, was as powerful as any army, because ideas could travel where swords could not. And as you breathe gently now, let that truth soothe you, because ideas of kindness, of courage, of dignity are stronger than any empire, and they live on in you each time you remember them. And one evening, as the girl walked through a field of flowering herbs, she felt a strange calmness in her chest, a sense that the worst storms were behind her, that now she could build something that would last, not just hide and fight, but truly plant the roots of a new way of living. And she began talking with the villagers about schools for their children, about healing houses for their sick, about ways to trade fairly so no one went hungry. And those dreams, once too dangerous to speak, now spilled from people's lips like blessings, because they had seen that change was possible, and their hearts were strong enough to believe in more. And as the girl planned, drawing simple maps on scraps of leather, sketching gardens and wells and safe pathways, she felt proud in a way she had never let herself feel before. Proud not of fighting, but of rebuilding. And that pride was healing, wrapping around the deepest wounds in her spirit and letting them finally close. And dear friend, as you let your eyes grow heavy, hold that same pride close, because you too have survived so much, and that deserves gentle honor. And as the seasons began to shift toward autumn, cool winds blowing down from the high mountains, she gathered her closest friends and told them they would stay for a while, help these villages stand fully on their own, protect them until they were strong enough to protect themselves. And her friends agreed with calm loyalty, because they understood that liberation was not a single moment, but 1,000 small moments woven together, defended day after day. And they set to work, building walls, teaching, singing, dancing in the evenings, letting joy bloom among the people. And those nights under torchlight were the sweetest she had ever known, because they were filled with music and freedom, with people unafraid to smile, unafraid to hope. And the girl sometimes just sat and watched, letting those sounds sink deep into her bones. And dear friend, I hope you let the same peaceful sounds fill you tonight, soft and safe, carrying you into gentle dreams, because you have earned this calm, just as they did. And as winter approached, they stored grain in hidden cellars, gathered warm furs, made plans to shelter anyone who might flee Rome in the coming snows. And in those plans was a quiet strength that no empire could break. And as you breathe more deeply now, feel that quiet strength inside you, because your spirit, like theirs, can survive any season. And one night, as frost began to gather on the fields, the girl stood by a small fire, looking around at children playing games in the dark, older women braiding each other's hair, men teaching boys how to mend tools. And she felt such gratitude it nearly overwhelmed her, because this was what freedom truly looked like: ordinary life without fear. And she closed her eyes and whispered thanks to every ancestor who had carried courage forward, who had refused to bow, who had kept hope alive long enough for her to learn what it meant to rise. And dear friend, let that gratitude settle over you now, like a warm blanket, helping you rest, helping you feel safe, helping you remember that you are enough. And as the girl turned to walk back toward her shelter, the young man she loved fell into step beside her, taking her hand, smiling in that quiet way that said everything without words. And together they stepped into the warmth of the village, knowing they would face more trials, knowing Rome would never fully stop hunting them, but also knowing they would never face it alone. And that was what gave her the courage to breathe, to keep going, to keep believing that change was not only possible, but unstoppable. And as you rest tonight, let that unstoppable belief hold you close, so you can sleep in peace, so you can dream of better days. Because even in a world full of chains, people have always found a way to break them. One gentle breath at a time, one act of kindness at a time, one night of courage at a time. And you, dear friend, are part of that long, brave story. Simply by remembering, simply by caring, simply by breathing calmly here with me now, ready to rise again tomorrow in your own strength, no matter what the world asks of you, because like her, you have already survived so much, and you are worthy of every hope that is still to come. The girl stayed through the winter in the village she had helped to free, moving through days filled with honest work and gentle laughter, teaching children to read letters scratched on clay, showing mothers how to mend clothes without fear of a master demanding their labor. And with every new dawn, she felt her heart grow steadier, stronger, because for the first time, there was no whip waiting for her if she made a mistake, no voice telling her she was worthless, no threat of losing everything she loved. And that quiet safety was worth more than gold. And as the snows fell thick across the rooftops, she helped stack wood, shared food, made sure no child went to sleep hungry. And in those simple acts, she rediscovered what it meant to be human, to belong, to be part of something built on care instead of cruelty. And dear friend, as you listen and breathe softly, I hope you hold that same sense of belonging in your heart, letting it calm you, letting it warm you, because you too deserve that comfort, that gentleness, that peace. And in the evenings when the fires burned low, she would sit with the young man who had escaped with her so long ago, sharing memories of the river where she once played as a child, of her mother's songs, of tiny flowers that grew along the nod edges of her village. And sometimes those memories made her cry, but it was a good kind of crying, a release, because now she knew she was safe enough to feel everything again. And when she closed her eyes to rest, she would dream of a future that had once seemed impossible, a future full of free children and free families and fields of grain that belonged to the hands that planted them. And that dream held her through every cold night, kept her spirit lit like a lantern, reminding her that her scars were not a mark of defeat, but of survival. And dear friend, I want you to remember that too as you lie down tonight, that every mark upon your heart means you have lived, you have kept going, you have stayed. And that is something precious. And as the days slowly grew longer, the villagers began to plan for spring, hoping to plant barley and beans, to trade with neighbors, to build more strong homes. And the girl helped them measure the soil, taught them where water might flow, made sure every person had a place to sleep. And those simple acts of building were more powerful than any rebellion, because they were a rebellion of love, of refusing. to let the Empire take away ordinary joys. And as you breathe now, let that love wrap around you, gentle and protective, like a warm blanket, letting you know that you are worthy of rest, that you are worthy of softness, just as she was. And as rumors came that Rome was stirring again, sending new patrols into the countryside, the girl gathered her people quietly, reminding them that freedom was never a moment, but 1,000 choices. That they would have to guard their safety, that they would have to teach their children to be watchful, to be strong, but also to be kind, because no one could build a better world on hate alone. And they listened, trusting her, because she had walked through so many storms and had never given up. And that trust was a gift she held close to her heart, more precious than jewels or gold, because it meant she had become more than what Rome once told her she was. She had become a leader, a teacher, a friend, and even a symbol of hope. And as the ice began to melt and the streams ran swift again, she stood on the hill outside the village, looking over green buds beginning to peek through the earth, and felt a quiet gratitude that she had lived to see this day. And dear friend, I wish for you to hold that same gratitude tonight, breathing slowly, letting your shoulders soften, letting your mind rest, because each night of peace is something to cherish. Each moment without fear is a moment to be thankful for, and you deserve to feel that thankfulness all through your bones, just as she did. And as the spring truly came, birds nesting among the clay roofs, flowers opening, the villagers held a festival, dancing around small fires, singing songs that had been forbidden for generations. And the girl watched them, smiling, feeling tears slip down her cheeks again, because to see these people free was the greatest reward of her long fight. And they invited her to dance with them. And at first she hesitated, because for so long her body had known only labor and pain. But then she let go of the old fears, stepped forward, and let herself move with the music, light and laughing. And for the first time she felt every part of her spirit truly free. And the young man took her hands, spinning her around, and their laughter rose up to the stars, carrying a message even the gods might hear, that freedom once found is unstoppable, and that no whip, no chain, no law can erase a people who remember how to stand together. And dear friend, as you drift to sleep, let that truth hold you, let it protect you, letting your mind settle into dreams where you, too, are free to move, to dance, to smile, to love, because those dreams are yours by right, and no one can take them. And as the girl finished dancing, she looked across the village and saw children giggling by the cooking pots, saw old women telling stories, saw young men sharing bread, and it filled her heart with a kind of peace so deep it felt like an ocean, as she promised herself that no matter how hard the future might be, she would keep coming back to this feeling, keep fighting for it, keep planting seeds of hope wherever she went, because that was her truest purpose, not only to break chains, but to help joy grow again. And in the days that followed, as she taught people how to build stronger walls, how to store grain for lean seasons, how to make medicine from herbs, she also taught them how to hold each other with gentleness, how to listen, how to protect the youngest and weakest. Because freedom meant more than escape. It meant belonging, and belonging was what the Empire could never give. And dear friend, as you breathe softly now, I invite you to remember that you belong, here in this moment, in your own skin, in your own story, and that is a beautiful truth. A truth worth holding close as you rest, knowing you are never alone, and you never have to be afraid to dream again. And as the stars wheeled overhead, the girl lay down beside the young man, pulling a blanket over them both, letting his calm, breathing remind her that love was a shield stronger than any sword. And she whispered into the night that she would keep going, that she would rise again and again, until every child in the Empire could sleep without fear. And that vow was as steady as the earth beneath her, giving her courage, giving her peace, and dear friend, may you carry that vow too, letting it ease your own heart, letting it bring you calm, so you can rest fully, breathing in peace, breathing out worry, knowing that tomorrow will come, and you will be ready, just as she was. Stronger for every tear, stronger for every scar, and always, always free. The days in the village turned warm again as spring moved toward summer, and the girl walked through the narrow lanes with a calm confidence that came not from power, but from belonging, from knowing that everyone around her trusted her heart. And each morning she helped gather herbs with the women who once feared to even speak aloud, showing them which leaves could heal wounds, which roots would ease fever. And as they worked, they laughed, telling jokes in voices that felt brand new, because for so many years, laughter had been stolen from them, and each moment of simple joy was a quiet rebellion, a refusal to be broken by the Empire's shadow. And the girl felt pride swell in her chest, seeing how far they had come, because these women who had once hidden their eyes now stood tall, teaching their children to sing songs that once had to be whispered, and those songs rose through the air like blessings, carried on the wind beyond the village, to places where hope still waited to awaken. And dear friend, as you listen to this, I want you to let those blessings rest on your heart tonight, reminding you that courage and kindness can be passed on like a spark, and that spark can light 1,000 candles even in the deepest night. And the girl knew this truth in every step she took, because each act of care, each word of love, was more powerful than any army. And as the days grew longer, scouts came with news that a Roman garrison had been moved closer, its soldiers tasked with finding rebels. And though a chill went through the village, the girl gathered the people together under the wide branches of the old oak tree and spoke calmly, reminding them that fear was natural, but it could not rule them, that they had built something worth protecting, and they would not let Rome take it away. And the villagers nodded, some afraid, some strong, all ready to stand together, and they made plans in quiet voices, marking paths to escape if needed, hiding food, teaching children how to slip through the woods. And in those preparations, there was a steady courage, not loud but deep, and the girl felt her heart steady too, because she had learned that freedom must be guarded as carefully as a newborn child, and that vigilance was a kind of love, a promise to protect each other. And dear friend, as you breathe calmly, let that promise sink into your own heart, reminding you that you too are worthy of protection, of peace, of gentle dreams. And the girl watched as people trained together, as old men showed boys how to set traps, as young women practiced carrying messages without being seen, and she knew that even if the soldiers came, they would never truly conquer this village, because they could never conquer the spirit of people who stood together. And as night fell, she sat with a young man she loved, sharing bread and soft words, letting the stars remind her of the bigger world beyond the walls. And she found hope there, in the endless sky, in the quiet breathing of people sleeping safely, in the simple trust that had been built one small kindness at a time. And she promised herself that no matter what storms rose, she would stay with them. She would stand beside them, because they deserved a world without fear. And as the weeks passed and the garrison sent scouts to spy, the villagers stayed alert but did not panic, moving through their days with quiet dignity, refusing to bow, refusing to give up their songs. And the girl took strength from their calm, letting it remind her of her own journey, of the girl who once scrubbed floors until her knees bled, who had dreamed of being free but never dared speak. And now here she was, teaching others how to hold their heads high, and that transformation felt holy, like a prayer answered by courage alone. And dear friend, as you close your eyes tonight, I want you to know that you too can transform, that you can rise after any hardship, that you can become someone even stronger, even kinder, because every breath you take in freedom is a kind of miracle, and you are worthy of it, just as they were. And the girl reminded the people again and again that Rome could not break them unless they broke each other. And so they shared food, forgave mistakes, held each other through grief, and laughed whenever they could, because laughter was resistance too. And in those small daily acts, they became unbreakable. And one night, as torches burned low and the air was warm with the scent of wildflowers, she walked to the edge of the village and listened to the quiet, hearing only the wind, and she felt peace so deep it seemed to fill every part of her, because she knew that even if soldiers came, they would not be alone, and that knowledge was enough to let her rest, breathing slow and steady, letting her spirit recover. And dear friend, I hope you feel that same steady peace now, letting your shoulders relax, letting your mind settle, because you are not alone either, not in your struggles, not in your dreams, not in your hopes. And as the girl stood watching the stars, the young man came to stand beside her, brushing her hand gently, and they looked at each other with a quiet love that needed no words, because it was stronger than any fear. And in that love, there was the memory of every person they had saved, every child they had helped, every song they had carried forward. And that memory was a shield that nothing could pierce. And in the days that followed, the villagers prepared to harvest the first summer grains, planting herbs for medicine, carving new wooden toys for the children, living fully even under the shadow of Rome. And the girl watched them, heart full, knowing that this was how freedom endured, not through swords alone, but through small daily joys. And dear friend, I wish for you those small daily joys too, that you might feel them tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, letting them fill your spirit with hope, letting them remind you how precious your own freedom is. And as night deepened, and the village fires burned down to embers, she lay down beside the people she loved, letting their breathing lull her to sleep. And as dreams came, they were sweet, full of fields and rivers and a sky without walls, because that was the world she was fighting to build. And she knew she would rise the next day, ready again, because courage does not end. It is renewed each morning, each moment. And you, dear friend, carry that same courage in you, whether you see it or not. And I hope tonight, as you rest, you can feel it steady and warm, reminding you that no matter what tomorrow brings, you are enough, you are brave, and you are free, just as she was, just as they all were, forever. The girl rose with the first pale light of dawn, stretching her arms toward the soft glow on the horizon, and she felt a deep calm settle over her heart as she looked out over the village she had helped free, a village that now stood like a living monument to courage, to kindness, to the power of people who refused to bow. And she stepped down from the small wooden porch where she had slept, breathing in the sense of warm bread baking in earth freshly, turned by farmers ready to plant again. And in those simple smells was a memory of freedom that felt more precious than any treasure, because each breath was hers alone, no master to command it, no overseer to steal it. And she moved through the village greeting people, helping an old woman carry a bucket of water, patting a child on the head as he ran by, giggling with a toy in his hand. And those tiny human moments reminded her why she kept fighting, why she could never go back to a world where chains ruled. And as the sun rose higher, the villagers gathered under the oak tree, where she stood with them to speak of the days ahead, telling them gently that Rome might come again. That danger was always part of freedom, but that together they would stand, and that courage was stronger than any army. And they listened, calm and brave, trusting her words, because they had seen with their own eyes how she had turned pain into power, how she had refused to let cruelty define her. And dear friend, as you listen, I want you to hold that same truth in your own heart, that no matter what has hurt you, no matter what shadows have passed over you, you are not defined by them. You are defined by the love you carry, the hope you nurture, the dreams you protect. And that is something no one can ever steal. And the girl reminded the villagers that they must teach their children, so the children would teach theirs. That no person belongs to another, that every life has worth. And those words rippled through the air like a blessing, settling into every heart. And as you breathe softly now, let that blessing rest on you too, reminding you that you are worthy, that you are safe, that you are enough, just as you are. And as the days passed, they began to build again, patching roofs, weaving baskets, tending small goats and chickens. All the gentle details of daily life that Rome had once stolen from them. And in those daily tasks, there was a quiet power. The power of ordinary joys returned, of laughter shared without fear, of songs sung out loud with no overseer to punish. Them and the girl watched this rebirth with tears in her eyes sometimes, because it felt like a miracle, a gift she had barely dared to hope for. And she carried those tears without shame, because they were proof of her humanity, proof she was still tender inside despite all she had endured. And dear friend, as you close your eyes tonight, I hope you let your own tears fall if they come, trusting that they are not weakness, but a sign you are alive, that your heart is open, and that is beautiful. And in the evenings when the sun turned the sky to gold, she would stand on the hill with the young man who had shared so many battles with her, and they would watch the village settle into quiet, hearing children being called inside for supper, seeing candles flicker through small windows. And those peaceful sights filled her with a calm so deep it seemed to reach her very bones. And she told him in a whisper that she would never leave this place unless the world needed her again. And he nodded, understanding without needing words, because they had walked so far together, through fear and hope, through loss and triumph. And they knew that sometimes the greatest gift was to simply be allowed to rest, to live, to belong. And as night fell, they would lie side by side on woven mats, sharing warmth under a single blanket, and she would listen to his heartbeat until she drifted into sleep. And dear friend, as you lie down tonight, I wish for you that same peaceful comfort, that same steady sense that you are held, that you are cherished, that you are safe. And as the days turned slowly into weeks, news came from beyond the hills of more people rising, of more villages daring to stand, and the girl smiled to hear it, because it meant that freedom was growing. Like green shoots after rain, unstoppable, reaching places she might never see, but still had touched with her courage. And she felt humbled by that, reminded that one heart, brave and steady, could change 1,000 lives. And I want you to know, dear friend, that your heart, too, can make ripples in the world, that every act of kindness you choose is a seed. Every word of encouragement you give is a blessing, and those things travel farther than you will ever know. And that is worth remembering as you breathe calmly now, letting your shoulders soften, letting your worries slip away, because you are part of something larger, the long story of humans refusing to be broken. And as the girl worked each day to help the villagers get stronger, to build a school for the little ones, to teach them their letters so they could write their own names proudly, she felt joy like she had never known, because this was the dream she had carried in the darkest nights, a dream of a world where no child was ever owned. And now it was coming true, one gentle sunrise at a time. And dear friend, as you drift toward sleep, let that sunrise glow inside you, letting it light your dreams, reminding you that new beginnings are always possible, no matter what has come before, and that you deserve those new beginnings. You deserve to heal. You deserve to grow, just as she did. And in those quiet evenings, she would help braid the girls' hair, teaching them small songs, telling them stories of heroes and rivers and mountains, giving them memories of hope to carry into their own futures. And she saw their eyes shining, free of fear, and it was the greatest reward she had ever known. And in the hush before sleep, she would sit alone for a moment, listening to the soft night sounds, breathing slowly, thanking every star that she had lived to see this day. And dear friend, let that gratitude fill you tonight. letting it soften every ache inside you, letting it remind you that you, too, have survived so much. And you have every right to rest. And as the girl finally closed her eyes, wrapped in the warmth of a people who loved her, she dreamed of fields without fences, of skies without war, of songs no empire could ever silence. And she promised in her heart that if tomorrow brought another challenge, she would stand again, because her courage had become like the roots of an ancient tree, impossible to cut, impossible to burn, always growing back. And dear friend, I believe that same courage lives in you, ready to rise whenever you need it, and I hope you feel it as you drift toward peaceful dreams, safe, calm, and free. The girl woke to the sound of birds calling across the rooftops, their songs blending with the soft clatter of the village coming alive. And for a moment she lay still, breathing in the cool morning air, letting the warmth of the blanket remind her that she was safe, that she was loved, that she was free. And those truths steadied her heart in ways no sword ever could. And as she rose and stepped outside, she saw children chasing each other through the dust, laughing with such pure freedom that it brought tears to her eyes, because she could still remember the days when no one dared to laugh, when silence had hung over them like a shroud. And now those sounds were like music, a reminder that joy had returned, and that was worth everything she had endured. As she moved through the village greeting people, helping lift baskets, checking on a mother with a newborn, offering a quiet word of encouragement to a boy who was learning to write his name for the first time. And in those small moments, she saw how powerful kindness could be, how it rebuilt broken spirits in ways no empire could ever undo. And dear friend, as you listen and breathe softly, let that same kindness soothe your own heart tonight, reminding you that you are enough, that you are precious, that your dreams matter. And as the sun climbed higher, she gathered a small circle of women near the well, teaching them how to bind herbs for medicine, how to heal small wounds, how to comfort one another in hard times. And they listened carefully, grateful, strong, and determined to never let fear steal their voices again. And in their eyes she saw reflections of herself, of who she had been, of who she had become, and of who she might still grow to be. And that sense of continuity, of a story stretching across time, calmed her, reminding her that no matter how long Rome lasted, it could never destroy the courage carried from one heart to the next. And the girl looked around the village, noticing the rebuilt homes, the smoke rising from cooking fires, the songs floating up toward the blue sky. And she felt a quiet satisfaction so deep it made her chest ache, because this was why she had survived to see life blooming again, strong and proud. And as you breathe gently now, let that blooming fill you with peace, letting you imagine fields green with hope, skies wide with possibilities, and dreams waiting like stars to be gathered, one by one, because they are yours to keep, just as they were hers. And in the evenings, as the sun set, painting gold on every stone, she walked with the young man who had stood beside her through every trial. And they spoke of simple things, of planting more trees, of teaching songs to the children, of someday seeing the sea together. And those dreams felt so soft and beautiful that they made every scar on her body feel worth it, every night of fear, every moment of pain, because she had arrived here, in a place where no one ordered her breath, and that was the greatest gift of all. And dear friend, as you close your eyes tonight, I hope you hold that same gift close, knowing you are allowed to rest, allowed to heal, allowed to hope, and that no one owns your spirit, no matter what you have faced. And as the nights grew warm and calm, the villagers sometimes gathered to tell stories by firelight, voices weaving together tales of gods and heroes, of rivers and mountains, of the brave girl who had come from slavery and helped free them all. And though their praises made her shy, she accepted them with humility, knowing that the true strength was shared, that every hand, every heart, Every quiet act of bravery had made their freedom possible, and she reminded them of that each time they thanked her, saying softly that the real miracle was how they had refused to give up, how they had chosen to love instead of hate, to build instead of burn, and those lessons would carry them forward long after she was gone. And dear friend, let that lesson live in you too, letting it ease your breathing, reminding you that even the smallest kind act is powerful. Even the gentlest word can change a life. And that is a truth to cherish. And as the days rolled into weeks, the girl helped prepare for harvest, showing children how to gather grain, helping mend baskets, laughing when goats ran through the fields kicking up dust. And those days felt simple and golden, woven through with the kind of peace she had never dared imagine in her hardest nights. And each evening as she washed her face at the well, looking into the calm water, she saw her reflection stronger than ever, a woman who had walked through fire and come out shining, and that made her smile. A soft, real smile that held no shame, only pride. And dear friend, as you drift toward sleep, I wish for you that same pride, because you have come through storms too. You have faced dark nights, and you are still here, breathing, living, dreaming, and that is something to honor. And as summer deepened, word came of a Roman patrol moving nearby, and the girl gathered the villagers calmly, reminding them that courage was their shield, that they had plans, that they would protect one another. And there was no panic, only resolve, because together they were unbreakable. And even if Rome tore down their walls, it could never tear down their unity. And that truth glowed in their eyes like firelight, steady and bright. And she promised them she would stay, that she would never leave them undefended. And they believed her, because she had proven again and again that no one would ever be left behind. And as the night fell with the threat still lingering, they sang songs, they held hands, they shared food, refusing to let fear poison their peace. And that act of defiance was as bold as any weapon. And dear friend, as you rest, let that defiance steady you, reminding you that no fear can steal your worth, that you are strong, that you are allowed to rest safely tonight, because your dreams matter, and you are never alone. And as dawn came, the Roman patrol passed by without stopping, perhaps unwilling, to challenge people who carried themselves with such confidence. And the girl sighed with relief, thanking the sky for one more day of safety. And she knew there would be more tests ahead, but she also knew they would meet them together. And that faith was a treasure she guarded in her heart, stronger than any sword. And dear friend, let that same faith hold you now, letting you breathe softer, letting your spirit grow calm, because you have survived before, and you will survive again. And as the girl stood watching the sunrise, feeling the warmth on her face, she whispered a quiet promise to the wind that she would keep planting hope, keep defending the songs, keep reminding every person she met that they deserved freedom. And she felt that promise settle into her bones like the roots of an old oak, unshakable. And as she turned back to the village, she saw children running to meet her, hands waving, laughter ringing through the morning air. And she opened her arms to them, feeling their trust, their love, and knowing that this was her legacy. This was the reason she had survived. And dear friend, as you breathe calmly now, I hope you remember that your legacy too can be love, can be courage, can be hope, passed on in gentle ways every day. And that is enough. And as night comes again, and you lie down with your own dreams, let this story wrap around you like a soft blanket, reminding you that you are free, you are precious, you are safe, just as she had become, and you are never alone. The girl moved through the long days of summer with a steady calm, carrying in her heart the memory of every person she had helped free, every child who now ran laughing through the village streets, every mother who had found her voice again after years of silence. And those memories were woven into her spirit like threads of gold, giving her courage whenever fear tried to rise, because she knew too well that peace was never guaranteed, that the Empire still watched, waiting, hoping to break what they had built. But as she looked around the village with its rebuilt homes and its fields full of growing grain, she knew deep inside that Rome could never truly break them again, because their strength came not from walls or weapons alone, but from each other, from the unshakable bonds they had formed through kindness, through shared songs, through tears dried gently, and hands held tightly. And dear friend, as you listen now, I want you to feel that same steady bond holding you, reminding you that you are never alone, and that no matter how heavy your burdens feel, someone has carried a burden before you and survived, and so will you. And as the sun rose day after day, the girl taught the younger children how to weave baskets, how to gather herbs for simple medicines, how to speak without shame, and every time a child spoke their own name proudly, she felt her heart shine a little brighter, because she remembered what it was like to have her name stolen. And now to hear these little voices carry their names with pride was a healing too deep for words. And she carried that healing with her as she helped mend walls, patch roofs, gather seeds for next year's planting, all the small ordinary acts that together made freedom real. And in the evenings when the air cooled and the lamps were lit, she would sit among the elders listening to their stories, learning from their wisdom, holding on to the lessons they had carried through so many lifetimes. And those lessons became a map for her own path, reminding her that true power was never in cruelty, but always in compassion. And dear friend, let that compassion rest in your heart tonight, letting your shoulders loosen, letting your breathing grow soft and peaceful, because you deserve that calm. You deserve to rest without fear. And as the days moved forward, the girl heard word of more villages rising, of people refusing to pay taxes, of farmers refusing to let their sons be taken to fight Rome's endless wars. And her spirit rose with that news, knowing their spark had become a flame, spreading beyond anything she could have dreamed. And she felt humbled by it, knowing she had only been one small voice who dared to say no. And yet that voice had grown into a chorus that even the Empire struggled to silence. And in the nights when doubts tried to slip into her mind, whispering that Rome was too strong, that freedom could never last, she would go outside and stand under the stars, letting their endless light remind her how small even the greatest empire was in the face of time. And that reminder was enough to steady her again, to help her sleep, to help her rise with hope. And dear friend, I wish for you that same hope tonight, that same sense that nothing can fully break you, that your heart is yours alone, safe and whole. And as the summer deepened, they planned a harvest celebration, a day of dancing and singing and sharing food with no fear. And she helped plan every detail, wanting it to feel like a blessing on all their hard work. And on the day of the festival, the sun was warm, the air soft with flower petals drifting, and the sound of flutes and drums carried far beyond the village, telling the world that they were still here, unbowed, unbroken, and that simple joy was its own rebellion, a way to tell Rome that it had failed to kill their spirit. And as she danced with the children, spinning them around in circles, their laughter rose so high it made tears gather in her eyes, because that laughter had once been unthinkable, and now it was everywhere, bright and unstoppable. And dear friend, as you breathe calmly now, I hope you can feel a bit of that joy, letting it warm you, letting it soften any ache inside you, reminding you that no matter what you have faced, there is still space for laughter in your life, and you deserve that. And as the sun set that evening, painting the sky in gold and rose, the girl sat beside the young man who had never left her side, and they watched lanterns float up into the night, each one carrying a wish, a prayer, a promise. And she whispered her wish too, that this peace would last, that their children would never know chains, that love would always guide them. And he squeezed her hand, telling her softly that as long as she was there, they would always find a way. And those words felt like a gift, something she could hold on the hardest days. And as you close your eyes tonight, Dear friend, I hope you hold a wish too, a gentle hope that tomorrow will be kinder, that you will wake with strength, that you will feel safe, because you deserve that with every breath. And as night fell, the villagers sang lullabies to the little ones, voices carrying over the quiet fields. And those lullabies were like a shield guarding their dreams, as she listened with her heart full, knowing that they had created something Rome could never burn down. And in the days that followed, the girl worked to teach the villagers how to store grain, how to treat small illnesses, how to weave cloth strong enough to last many seasons. And all of that knowledge felt like treasure, passed hand to hand, generation to generation, and she vowed to keep spreading it, because freedom was not just about breaking chains. It was about learning how to live well, how to stand together, how to build a future, and that lesson was more powerful than any. Sword and dear friend, let that lesson hold you as you drift to sleep, reminding you that your life is precious, that your dreams are precious, and no one has the right to steal them. And as the days turned toward autumn, the girl stood at the village edge one evening, looking out over fields ready for harvest. And she felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that they were strong, that they were ready, that no matter what came, they would stand together. And that peace settled over her like a soft blanket, helping her breathe deeply, helping her rest. And dear friend, let that same peace settle over you tonight, reminding you that you are safe, that you are loved, that you are worthy, and that no fear has the right to steal your sleep. And as night deepened, the girl lay down beside her people, hearing the sounds of quiet breathing, the gentle rustle of wind through the trees, and she smiled before sleep took her, dreaming of rivers and fields and songs, of hands held tight in courage, of children growing strong and unafraid. And she knew in her dreams that she would rise again and again, for as long as the world needed her, because hope was her true name now, and that could never be taken. And dear friend, I hope you carry that hope with you as you rest, letting it fill you like gentle light, letting it calm you so you can dream without fear, so you can rise tomorrow knowing you are brave, you are kind, and you are free, just as she had become, just as every person deserves to be. The girl felt the first chill of autumn slip through the air as she walked along the edges of the village fields, watching the grain bow heavy with ripeness, ready for harvest, and she smiled, because this was the reward for their courage, the proof that freedom could feed people as surely as any. Bread, and as she moved from house to house, helping neighbors gather baskets, showing children how to braid straw into ropes, she felt a soft glow of peace inside her that no Roman sword could ever cut. And in every face she passed, there was pride, calm, and a kind of gratitude that ran so deep, it seemed to steady the entire village, as she knew they were ready for the winter to come, not just with food and shelter, but with the certainty that no master would ever stand over them again. And dear friend, as you breathe calmly now, I hope you let that same certainty rest inside you, reminding you that you are free, that no one owns your heart, that you are worthy of every gentle hope you hold. And in the evenings as the wind grew cool, she sat near the cooking fires, listening to old stories retold, songs reborn after years of being silenced, and each voice was like a candle in the night, shining steady and warm. And those candles together made the dark feel less frightening, reminding everyone that they were not alone, that they would never be alone again. And sometimes tears would gather in her eyes as she watched the smallest children dance in the firelight, because those children had never known chains. And that was the greatest victory of all, that they could grow up unafraid, proud, and free. And as she brushed away her tears, the young man who still stood by her side reached for her hand, reminding her with a gentle squeeze that he understood, that he shared her dream, and that was enough to fill her heart with courage for every challenge yet to come. And as you lie, here listening, dear friend, I wish for you that same hand of comfort, that same sense that someone sees you, understands you, stands with you, because you deserve that trust, that loyalty, that peace. And as the days grew shorter and the leaves began to fall, she worked with the village to store grain in clay jars, to salt meat for the cold months, to patch roofs against storms. And though the work was hard, it was joyful, because every moment was chosen freely, every effort shared with willing hearts. And no whip cracked over their backs, no cruel voice stole their laughter. And that was freedom in its truest form, not grand speeches or banners, but the simple right to live, to love, to rest without fear. And as you breathe deeply now, let that right settle into your bones, reminding you that you deserve to rest tonight, that you deserve dreams soft as a warm blanket, and no shadow from your past can steal that from you. And in the last days before the harvest began, she walked through the fields with the young man, pointing out the tall stalks, laughing when the wind made them sway, and together they imagined how they would build the next spring, maybe more homes, maybe a bigger school, maybe a place for music and dancing. And those dreams were sweet as honey, carrying the promise that their story was far from over, that even after so many battles, so many tears, they still had hope left to plant. And dear friend, I hope you plant hope too, planting it in small ways each day, with kind words, with soft prayers, with simple moments of gratitude. Because those small seeds grow into miracles, and you deserve every miracle your heart can hold. And as night fell, the girl stood at the doorway of the little house she called her own now, hearing the quiet breathing of people sleeping, the occasional giggle of a child sneaking a late sip of water, the rustle of the breeze against clay walls, and all of those sounds felt like a lullaby, a promise that tomorrow would come gently. And she let that promise carry her to bed, letting her mind slip toward dreams of green fields and rivers that ran free. And she knew, even half asleep, that she would rise again, as she always had, because freedom was her breath now, woven into every heartbeat, and she would never surrender it. And dear friend, as you close your eyes tonight, let that same breath of freedom steady you, letting you know you are enough, that your story matters, that your kindness matters. And as the harvest days arrived, with songs and laughter and so, many hands working together, she saw the children helping gather grain, saw grandmothers teaching them how to stack it safely, saw fathers showing their sons how to mend tools, and all of it was beautiful beyond words. A painting come to life, full of color and motion and joy, and in those moments she felt her spirit heal all over again, because the world had tried to break her, but she had risen, and in rising, she had given others permission to rise too, and that was the greatest gift of all. And dear friend, I want you to know that every time you rise from something hard, you give courage to someone else. Even if you never see it, even if they never tell you, you make the world stronger just by trying again, and that is worth honoring as you breathe. Slowly now, letting that truth settle over you like the hush of night, reminding you that you are precious, that you are worthy of all the peace you long for. And as the harvest festival came, with dancing and stories, with bread and roasted grain and honey shared among friends, she watched the village glow in torchlight, free, safe, unafraid, and she let herself dance too, spinning slowly under the stars, holding the young man's hands, laughing with her whole heart, because she could, because no one could stop her, because she had chosen this life and built it from ashes. And dear friend, as you drift toward dreams, remember that you can build too, that your hands and heart can shape tomorrow in quiet, beautiful ways, and no one can take that from you. And as the night deepened, she stood still for a moment, letting the wind lift her hair, letting the sound of songs soak into her spirit, and she whispered a promise to herself, that she would never let the world harden her, that she would never forget the power of gentleness, and that she would keep teaching others to be kind even when they were afraid, because kindness was stronger than any sword. And you, dear friend, Hold that same strength inside you, even if you doubt it. Even if you can't see it tonight, it is there, waiting. And as you sleep, let it steady you, let it heal you, because tomorrow you will wake and breathe freely again. And that is a miracle, just like her miracle. And it is yours to keep forever. The girl stood quietly at the edge of the field as autumn deepened around her, the cool wind carrying the scent of wood smoke and drying herbs. And she watched the villagers move through their day with a calm grace that filled her heart with a quiet, steady pride, because each step they took was a step chosen freely, each breath their own, and no master would ever steal that from them. Again, and she felt the truth warmer from the inside, stronger than any fire, stronger than any shield, because it was made of love and courage woven together. And dear friend, as you listen now, I want you to let that same warmth steady you, reminding you that your freedom, your worth, your dreams are yours alone, and no one can ever rightfully claim them. And as the days grew shorter and leaves began to paint the hills in gold and red, the girl helped the village prepare for winter, working side by side with elders and children, stacking firewood, gathering seeds, checking roofs for leaks. And though the tasks were simple, they were precious because they were done without fear. And each evening when the lamps were lit, she would sit among the people listening to stories, laughing at jokes, sharing memories of loved ones. And in those gatherings, she saw something priceless take root: community, the kind that could not be burned or chained or bought. And in that community was a strength Rome would never break. And that knowledge helped her sleep more peacefully each night, knowing that even if soldiers came again, they would find people ready to stand together. And as you breathe slowly now, let that same sense of belonging rest in your heart, letting your shoulders soften, letting your spirit feel safe, because you are not alone, and you never have to carry your dreams alone. And in the quiet hours before dawn, the girl sometimes walked alone through the village paths, touching the rough clay walls of homes she had helped rebuild, hearing the soft breathing of people sleeping, and she would let gratitude fill her so completely it brought tears to her eyes, because she had lived through darkness so deep she once thought she would never stand again. Yet here she was, not only standing but helping others stand. And dear friend, let that remind you tonight that your story is still unfolding, that even after the worst pain, you can rise, and you can become someone who helps others rise too. And that is a gift beyond measure. And as the nights grew colder, they gathered closer around the fires, telling old songs that had survived centuries, songs that spoke of the earth, of rivers, of ancestors who had refused to bow. And the girl would close her eyes and let those voices wash over her, soothing every scar in her heart, reminding her that she was part of something far older and far greater than any empire. And that thought was a comfort beyond any blanket. And I wish for you, dear friend, that same comfort now, letting you breathe softer, letting you rest more fully, because your life too is a thread in a much bigger tapestry, and it matters more than you may ever know. And as winter's first chill touched the village, the girl helped the children make warm cloaks from woven cloth, teaching them how to mend tears, how to share what little they had so no one would be left out. And those lessons were as important as any battle plan, because they built a world no soldier could destroy, a world of care, of loyalty, of shared hope. And she saw the children's eyes shine with pride as they wore their cloaks, feeling safe, feeling valued, and that sight made every hardship she had ever survived feel worthwhile. And as you close your eyes tonight, dear friend, I hope you remember that you, too, deserve to feel safe, to feel valued, to rest in the knowledge that you are enough. And as the nights grew longer, the villagers took turns telling stories by the fire, and the girl often listened more than she spoke, because each tale was a treasure, a piece of someone's heart, and those stories made them strong, made them real, made them free. and she would carry those stories in her spirit forever, letting them steady her courage for every tomorrow. And dear friend, as you listen, I hope you let stories steady you too, because they remind us who we are, they remind us we are never truly alone, and that is a powerful thing to hold on to in the dark. And as snow began to fall, turning the village bright and clean, the girl helped string lanterns along the paths, so no one would be lost on cold nights. And that soft glow felt like a promise, a vow that they would look out for each other always. And in that gentle light, she felt a peace deeper than she had ever imagined possible, a peace that reached every wound inside her and reminded her that she was no longer only a survivor, but a builder, a dreamer, a guardian of hope. And dear friend, as you breathe calmly now, let that identity settle over you too, knowing you are more than what has hurt you. You are more than what you have lost. You are a dreamer, a builder, someone who matters, and that is enough. And in the days that followed, the girl helped plan for spring, even while snow still lay thick on the ground, because hope was a seed that never truly slept. And she taught the children how to save a handful of grain, how to protect a spark of fire through the cold, how to sing courage into their own hearts, so that when the sun returned, they would be ready to grow again. And those lessons would live long after she was gone, carried through voices and memories and love. And dear friend, let those same lessons wrap around you tonight, letting you feel strong, letting you rest, because rest is a kind of rebellion too, a way to tell the world you will not be broken, and you will rise again. And as the girl stood by the fire one night, looking out over the quiet, seeing the tiny lights glowing in every doorway, she felt a wave of gratitude so powerful, it almost stole her breath, because these were her people now. This was her family, chosen through courage and loyalty, and that bond was more valuable than any treasure. And she whispered a promise into the night that she would never leave them, that she would keep guarding them as long as she drew breath. And that vow was as steady as the earth beneath her, unshakable, unbreakable. And dear friend, I hope you carry a vow too, a gentle vow to keep going, to keep healing, to keep hoping, even on the hardest days, because you deserve that. And as she finally lay down to sleep, listening to the wind sigh against the clay walls, she felt safe, truly safe, for the first time in all her years. And that feeling let her drift into the sweetest dreams, where no chains existed, where no one was ever bought or sold, where every child could laugh without fear. And as you lie down now, I wish for you that same sweetness, that same calm, letting your spirit rest without worry, letting you breathe deeply, knowing you are loved, you are worthy, and you are free, just as she had become, just as they had all become together, forever. The girl woke to a morning so still and quiet, it felt as though the world itself was holding its breath. And as she stepped outside, the cold air touched her skin, reminding her that winter was almost finished, that the earth would soon turn green again. And she smiled at that thought, because she had come to love the way seasons changed, the way nothing stayed trapped forever. And as she looked over the village, she saw the first tiny sprouts breaking through the hard ground, and that simple sign of new life made her heart lift, because it was proof that no matter how long the darkness lasted, the sun would always return. And she carried that truth through her day, helping neighbors repair broken tools, sharing small stories with children, checking on elders who needed warm blankets. And in each small kindness, she felt her spirit grow steadier, because kindness had become her armor, stronger than any sword, and it had never let her down. And dear friend, as you listen now, I hope you let that same kindness wrap around you, reminding you that your gentleness is a strength, that your softness is a power. And as the days slowly grew longer, the girl and her people began to plan their planting, measuring seeds, marking rows, singing old songs that spoke of harvests and rivers and sky. And each voice that joined those songs was a small rebellion against the silence that once ruled. their world, and the girl listened to those voices with gratitude shining in her eyes, because every note was a promise that they would never go back, that no chain would ever hold them again. And as you breathe calmly now, let that promise rest in your heart, reminding you that you, too, are free to dream, free to hope, free to build. And as night fell, she gathered the children around a small fire, teaching them how to listen to the wind, how to hear its warnings and its blessings. And she reminded them gently that the land itself was their friend if they cared for it. And the children listened with wide, curious eyes, holding those lessons in their memories like treasures. And she knew that they would carry that wisdom forward, just as she had carried her mother's songs through every night of pain and fear. Friend, I wish for you to hold wisdom too, trusting that every hard lesson you have learned will guide you, and you will know what to do, and you will stand tall, just as she had. And as the moon rose high, silver and calm, the girl walked through the village, touching doorways, greeting people by name, reminding them they were safe, that they were strong. And those words were a blessing on their hearts, helping them sleep with a peace so deep it felt like love. And as you rest tonight, let those same words soothe you, reminding you that you are enough, that you are worthy of gentle rest, that you are allowed to let go of fear for a while, and trust that tomorrow will wait kindly for you. And the girl knew that Rome would still send soldiers, would still send laws meant to break their courage, but she also knew now that her people were ready, that they would stand together, that they would protect one another. And that thought brought her a calm, so steady it felt like a river flowing through her chest, carrying away every trace of old fear, and she promised herself that she would keep teaching, keep reminding every new child born in freedom what their name meant, what their heart was worth, what their laughter could build, because that was the greatest lesson she had learned, that freedom was not a single moment, but a way of living, a way of holding each other close, even in hard times. And dear friend, I hope you let that lesson live inside you, reminding you that love is the foundation of every true freedom, and that you deserve to rest tonight, wrapped in that love, letting your breathing soften, letting your spirit feel safe. And as the days turned, the girl began to plan a festival for the first planting of spring, with songs and dancing and food for everyone, so that no one would feel alone, so that every person would taste joy without price. And the preparations filled the village with hope, with light, with laughter that rose from every doorway like a prayer. And she watched it all unfold with a quiet pride that made her smile every time she closed her eyes. And as night fell, she sat under the stars with the young man who had stood by her side since the very beginning. And he told her softly that he had never believed such a place was possible until she showed him. And she took his hand, holding it against her heart, telling him that she had never believed it either, but together they had built it, and that truth felt like a gift, a miracle, proof that even the most broken dreams could be mended. And dear friend, as you drift toward sleep now, let that miracle remind you that your dreams can be mended too, that your hopes can still bloom, that you are worthy of trying again, no matter how many storms you have survived. And as the girl rested against his shoulder, she felt the peace of the night soak through her bones, and she allowed herself to believe that tomorrow would be gentle, and that if it was not, they would face it together, and that was enough. And the festival day came bright and golden, with flowers woven into hair, with songs that lifted high into the sky, with food shared freely. And in every smile she saw the courage that had carried them to this place, the courage that had built something Rome could never destroy. And as they danced, spinning in circles, she felt lighter than she had ever felt, as though every chain that had once cut into her skin was nothing but a distant echo, powerless now to hurt her. And she knew that was true, because she had claimed her own name again, her own breath, her own soul, and no one could take that away. And dear friend, As you breathe deeply, I want you to feel that same power, knowing that your story is yours alone, that you are free to shape it, free to protect it, free to share it with love, and no one can take that from you. And as night fell after the festival, she walked alone through the quiet, feeling the dust of dancing still clinging to her feet, and she whispered a promise to the earth that she would keep standing, keep helping, keep singing, for as long as breath was in her, and that promise felt strong enough to light 1,000 candles, strong enough to survive any empire, and she carried it with her to her bed, where she lay down, listening to the steady breathing of people she loved, and she felt her heart open like a flower in moonlight, calm and unafraid, ready for rest. And as you close your eyes now, dear friend, let your heart open too, letting peace settle in every corner, letting your hopes rest safe and quiet until morning, because you are worthy of every kind dream, of every healing breath, of every gentle tomorrow. And as the girl drifted into sleep, she dreamed of fields without fences, skies without war, children whose laughter would never be stolen. And she felt joy so deep it made her smile even in her dreams. And dear friend, I wish for you that same smile, that same deep and healing peace as you rest tonight, as you sleep safely, as you remember that you are enough, you are loved, you are free, just as she became, and just as you always deserve to be.